Clerk informs me that we have a quorum. Please, everyone, take your seats. We're going to open up V-Voter so that we can get a roll call of everyone and make sure that... Dave, they said they can't hear me. We good? Okay. Okay. Can everyone take their seats, and please don't forget to test out your clicker by voting present. I hope you all had a better break than I had. I just want to address the elephant in the room. I'm not wearing a tie, in part because I don't want to asphyxiate myself on stage here. I tore my bicep tendon on Tuesday night, and it's been an interesting run since then. So we need to finish town meeting before next Friday so that I can have surgery as scheduled. I appreciate everybody's cooperation in that effect. But it's not my gavel hand, so we should be in good shape. Before we begin tonight, I just want to kind of give proper due to the members of our community that we lost. We weren't able to show the pictures on Monday night. This is Kevin Mon, who was an officer in Winchester for 35 years, John W. Lane III, and Bob Johnson, who was a longtime member of town meeting. As I began to say on Monday night, to give everybody a sense of where we are in town meeting, if you compare it to the Ken Burns American Revolution documentary, we are at the end of hour 5, the end of episode 3. The title of that episode is "The Times That Try Men's Souls," and we are about to begin the stretch of articles that will try the moderator's soul. Tonight we're going to begin with bylaws. We're going to do Articles 4 and 5 as we discussed on Monday night. Then capital planning, Articles 17 through 24. Depending on the timing, I'd like to break after capital planning and then take up Articles 25, 26, 27, and 28. Prior to this meeting, the Finance Committee voted the yellow sheet with the which reflects an agreement between the Finance Committee, the Select Board, and the School Committee on this year's operating budget. With the support of town staff, the budget book will be completed tomorrow and emailed to town meeting members. This year is a different year for many, for most town boards because of the override which happened in March, and then and town meeting falling directly after that. So we're going to be a little bit gracious in terms of timing and things like that. There is a 7-day requirement for town meeting to be able to take up something like this. We're going to have to waive it, not only to take it up in this town meeting, but to be able to do it on time. So generally, town meeting votes on the budget on the first Monday of May, which would be only 4 days from now. I'm asking town meeting to waive the 7-day requirement so we can take it up a week from today. So next Thursday, we'll do the budget. That should give everybody almost the full 7 days. We're not going to do the budget traditionally on the first Monday, but I want to give everybody the time to be prepared for that discussion. Okay. So we will begin tonight with Article 4. Yep. On behalf of the petitioner of the Select Board, Anthea Brady.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, town meeting. I'm Anthea Brady. I'm the chair of the Select Board, and I am joined by
Rebecca Sliz, Executive Director of the Network for Social Justice and town meeting member from Precinct 8.
So I'll kick it off and pass it back and forth to Rebecca, as if we are passing a hockey puck in the Fleet game that's happening right now. So how do we get here? At the fall town meeting, I came to you with a proposal and promised to come back in the spring. We introduced the idea of a Human Rights Commission. The Select Board then convened a working group. Several residents volunteered, and we appointed the following members who made up an excellent team to examine and build out the bylaw. We're joined by a member of the school committee, Karen Mayorama Bolognese, Mary Ellen Marshall, our town clerk, and Rebecca, and then Bob Davidson, Shreya Nair, and Hillary Turkowitz, who are community members. This group worked together to collaborate on the proposed bylaw, and we're back here at Springtown meeting to present it to you.
So why does Winchester need a Human Rights Commission? For the data folks in the room, I'm going to start with some uncomfortable numbers. And I realized when I said that trend might continue through the evening, although maybe it's next Thursday when we talk about the budget. In 2025, in the state of Massachusetts, there were 3,243 new discrimination complaints filed, according to the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination. There were 467 hate crimes reported in the state of Massachusetts in 2024, which also included a 23% increase in anti-Semitic events or incidents from 2023 to 2024. And this number surpassed for the first time the number of hate crimes against the Black population of Massachusetts. But this is Winchester, you might say. We don't have these problems here. Well, let's take a look at a little Winchester data that was available online. So one publicly available data source for Winchester is the Youth Health Survey. For 2025, middle and high school students experience discrimination due to their race or ethnicity, religion, disability, gender identity, or sexual orientation. And while the percentages are small, there are statistically significant differences for students with these identity characteristics of feeling unsafe on the way to or at school or being bullied, electronically or in person. For 20 years, the Response and Advocacy Committee of the Network for Social Justice has heard personal stories of identity-based harassment and discrimination, and listened to voices saying, as this quote does, "Racism can be taken lightly by people who aren't affected by it, and it's hard to get people to pay attention to the problem. Thank you for paying attention now." At the network, we believe that multiple things can be true at the same time. So discrimination and bias exist in Massachusetts and in Winchester, and we have had a human rights statement in Winchester since 2009. It's been updated twice, most recently in 2020, adding country of origin and immigration status, and pledging protection of human rights and equal treatment and opportunity to all individuals. Establishing a Human Rights Commission in Winchester would help us deliver on this commitment and set of values.
It's a flashback to Monday night, this slide. So the Human Rights Commission is not a cost to establishing this in terms of identifying free cash or borrowing or anything like that. And it's benefits all residents within Winchester. So we presented this Monday night to indicate where the select board articles are, and just wanted to ground you back here that that's kind of how we're moving the Human Rights Commission article forward. Especially at a time when we're facing a difficult budget situation, this is a positive step for our community to move forward. So I'm going to bring you to the article. You should have received Article 4, revised motion. If you have that and that you're looking at, you can turn to page 2. If you don't have it, I will let you know what the changes are, but if you have the old version, you'll do okay. So the duties of the Human Rights Commission would be established, serve as a point of contact for people who have questions or a resource. They will have connections to be able to refer to appropriate resources. They could host educational programs. So I think if you picked up out front, there's a FAQ statement that says, well, what is an educational program? What does that mean? So it could be informational. It could be partnering with another group. There's reviewing of applicable town bylaws and policies. So if something may have a direct impact on employees or on the human rights of residents, can be a resource to the town leadership, town's employees, volunteers on boards and committees, and other residents or folks who work in town. Has the opportunity to consult with relevant state bodies, look at policies and programs, and then we'll come back and report to the select board and school committee biannually and to town meeting annually. So who's going to be a part of that commission? So the composition and the appointment of members would be 9 members serving 3-year terms. Of those members, 2 are students, and the students would serve a 1-year term. So 4 residents would be appointed, 2 as liaisons. 2 of the members would then be appointed as a liaison to the Council on Aging or the Disability Access Commission. 2 high school students who are residents, and then 3 senior leadership members in the town, so a member of the school department administration, the town manager, or a designee, the chief of police, or a designee. The members would be appointed by the select board, who will appoint 3 members and 1 student, the school committee, who will appoint 1 member and 1 student, and the superintendent or designee. The select board will appoint from the town side. And those members would be appointed, and their roles and responsibilities as the committee is set up would be determined so that they're within the scope of the town employees' job duties. It's back to you. Yeah.
So I mentioned I'm the executive director of the Network for Social Justice, and I want to clearly affirm tonight that the roles of the network and a Human Rights Commission are complementary and both are needed. As a nonprofit organization with 35 years of history in Winchester, the network has endeavored to engage the community in celebrating diversity and addressing discrimination and inequities. We can fundraise, I'm not there yet, but we can fundraise, and we exist today because of the generosity and consistent support of community members like many of you. And the climate for fundraising and the future in general are uncertain, which is just one reason that having a Human Rights Commission in Winchester will ensure that this work does not depend only on the network's continued presence here. As a town entity, an HRC would bring diverse voices to the table on a regular basis. Our new town manager, Chris Sr., likened it to a bridge to residents, and I personally can already see that he will be a facilitator and supporter of this work. These public-private partnerships are not new in Winchester. There are two examples here: the Historical Society and Historical Commission, the Cultural or Arts District, and the Cultural Council. Bottom line, we need more partnerships like this and more people doing this work, not fewer. So what does collaboration look like? We were asked about this and what does it look like in other towns, and I can confidently point to nearby neighbors such as Belmont and Arlington, as well as one of Cohasset's neighbors, Hingham, and find examples of educational programs that are the result of collaborations of HRCs and community partners. We can do this in Winchester too.
So we know that several boards and committees have voted favorable action. The Select Board, the School Committee, the Board of Health, and the Housing Partnership Board have all indicated their favorable action for this article. We've spoken with community organizations as well, so the Chinese American Network of Winchester, the Network for Social Justice, and Winchester ABC. If you were looking at your revised motion, you might be wondering why it was revised. We spoke with Committee on Government Regulations and initially proposed this as a town meeting committee under Chapter 2. Based on their feedback, we then revised this to be a committee just established within the bylaws and not a committee of town meeting. So that's one change you'll see in the revised motion. The other change is on the third page, you'll see in bold, it just changed the word jurisdiction to preview to purview to clear up some ambiguous language. So those are the only two changes made to this. So coming back to the human rights statement, I'm sure that each of us can relate to a role here, a resident, an employee, a business owner, a student, or any other identity encompassed within this statement. So we believe that we share the aspiration to live up to this statement and ask you to vote yes on Article 4 to establish a Human Rights Commissioner in Winchester. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the Select Board want to give their recommendation?
The Select Board voted unanimous favorable action. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Committee on Government Regulations. Matt.
Matthew.
Thank you.
It's the COGR.
Okay. Thank you.
For those of you new to town meeting, Government Regulations Committee is charged by town meeting as a standing committee of town meeting to review any prospective bylaw changes before town meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you to the members, I'm Steve Boksansky, Precinct 4, and Chair of the Committee on Government Regulations. As the moderator indicated, we are a body that looks at bylaws that impact bylaws. And I'd like to take the opportunity, I missed this last time, but I want to recognize my fellow colleagues on the committee because they've put a lot of time and effort into what we think is a good experience. So Precinct 1, Meredith Mason Crowley. Precinct 2, Laura Colella. Precinct 3, Karen Connolly. Me for Precinct 4. Precinct 5 is Colin Simpson. Precinct 6, Joan Miller. Precinct 7, Megan Blackwell. And Precinct 8, Dawn Bradford. Just going to quickly go over some 2026 highlights. I touched on this on Monday, but it's important to note that we went through sort of a discovery process at COGR this year. We looked real closely at the bylaws, and then we came up with a set of operating rules that closely adhere to those bylaws. And when we did that, we realized in the past maybe COGR maybe wasn't living up to the letter of the bylaws, and our intention is to try to do that. So that's where we're coming from. And we think it's an important process. We think it's a process that can help inform town meeting members. That's our job, is to look at these different articles that impact the bylaws, invite the sponsors, invite the impacted stakeholders, gather that feedback, have a discussion, and then have a vote on a recommendation. First and foremost for COGR is really, does the proposed bylaw, is it consistent and coherent with the existing bylaws and the charter? And then we want to look at the legal perspective, and we rely on town council for that. We also look at the operational and administrative implications, and we rely on the impacted stakeholders for that. So it might be the town clerk, it might be the Board of Health from Monday, that was the key stakeholder for that discussion. But we try to get as much feedback as we can, vote on a recommendation, and put that report forward for all of you. So hopefully you have all had a chance to read our reports on the various articles. But if you haven't, let me tell you what's next. Article 4, the Human Rights Commission, we're recommending unfavorable action 8-0. And let me just take a moment to tell you why. It's not about the substance of the matter. It's really about the process and how are we trying to accomplish this goal. And we think it's inconsistent with Section 211 of the town charter. We did have a chance to speak with the sponsor, as noted earlier. And at that time, we did recommend that we all thought it ought not to be part of the bylaws. And we see this as a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. So here is Section 211 from the charter, just so everyone knows. And it says, the town meeting may from time to time establish standing committees to which shall be referred warrant articles for study, review, and report in advance of the sessions of the town meeting. That's kind of what we do at COGR. But existing committees that fall under this directive are the Finance Committee, Personnel Board, us, Rules, Capital Planning, and Retiree Health Insurance Advisory. So when we look at that definition in that directive, it's very narrow and well-defined as to what that standing committee ought to be charged with. And so when we look at the proposed bylaw for Human Rights Commission, it does a lot more than what 211 says. Serve as a point of contact, make recommendations, hold educational programs, review existing and proposed bylaws. We like that. That's why I highlighted that. That falls in line. To serve as a resource for the Select Board, to consult with the Mass Commission Against Discrimination, to create subcommittees, to expend funds, to monitor the implementation of policies, and make written reports to the Select Board and the school charter. So again, when we look at 211 and then we look at the proposal, again, to us, it's a square peg trying to get into a round hole. And that's why I put this image up there for you now.
Okay.
But there's good news. I'm almost done, Phil.
Well, we're almost out of time. I mean, you have 30 seconds.
Real done. Okay, real done. The good news is there are plenty of committees, advisory committees, and boards that are set up through town meeting. So all these boards I found on the town's website, they're all existing, they're all doing great work. And if you look at the establishment and the mission of a lot of these committees, you'll see they look a lot like the Human Rights Commission. And that was our recommendation, to put it outside of the bylaws and to put it into, we could vote on it as town meeting, but it doesn't have to be part of the bylaws. All these are up there and none of them are in the bylaws. And so I'll stop there. Thank you very much for the time, everybody. And that's our recommendation from Committee on Government Regulations.
Would you like to speak? Sure. Ms. Brady?
So just to clarify, in the revised motion that is presented to town meeting, the Human Rights Commission is not proposed as a standing committee on town meeting. We took that feedback from GovRegs. So what you will be voting on this evening is a revised motion that proposes this as a new chapter in the bylaws, but is not as a standing committee of town meeting.
Okay. We're going to open it up to town meeting members. If you want to be heard on the question, please make your way to the microphone. Please state your name.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Amanda Lewis, 6 Wilson Street, Precinct 1. I'm also the president of Winchester ABC. I'm rising this evening in support of Article 4, the creation of a Human Rights Commission for Winchester. For years, Winchester has had a strong human rights statement, but a statement is only as strong as the tools we create to uphold it. When we look at our neighboring towns, we see what is possible. In Lexington, their commission hosts No Hate November. In Arlington and Dedham, commissions provide a safe local space for residents to report bias incidents before they escalate. These towns aren't just reacting to problems, they are building communities where every resident feels they belong. A critical part of this commission's mission would be education. It would not just be a reactive body, it would be a proactive classroom for our community. It would host public forums for fair housing, lead workshops on recognizing implicit bias, and partner with our schools to bring civil rights history to life for our students. By creating these learning opportunities, the HRC would help us move past misunderstanding and give us language to discuss difficult topics with empathy and respect. Winchester needs this infrastructure. We are home to vital programs like the nonprofit that I volunteer with, Winchester A Better Chance. For 54 years, Winchester ABC has brought talented scholars of color into our community, scholars who live here for 4 years of high school, but establish roots here for their whole lives. It shouldn't be the sole job of a nonprofit to ensure that these students feel welcome in our town. That's a civic responsibility. An HRC would provide the institutional support to ensure our schools, can you still hear me? And our businesses reflect the inclusive home we promise these scholars and others. This commission would allow us to celebrate our diversity with more intention. Right now, commemorations like MLK Day often rely on the heroic efforts of volunteers in town. A formal commission can work to see that MLK Day and other cultural milestones are honored with dignity and town-wide participation. This commission allows us to do more than say we are a welcoming community. It does something to show that we are one. Please join me in voting yes on Article 4. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further on the question, Ms. Sullivan.
Maura Sullivan, Precinct 1. I was going to rise to say why I thought it did belong in Chapter 2. I think it should be a standing committee, but I'm glad the Select Board had moved it to a new Chapter 27, which was going to be my recommendation if town meeting wasn't comfortable with it as a standing committee. I do want to point out that Section 2.5 of the bylaws says that town meeting may establish committees as it deems appropriate as long as not inconsistent with law, and this would not have been inconsistent with the charter or the bylaws or Massachusetts law. And I wanted to end by saying the Retiree Health Insurance Advisory Committee was listed as a committee that was not in the bylaws, but it is. It's section 4.8. So
Thank
we do
you.
have a practice of having advisory committees in the bylaw.
Okay. Further on the question, I think you were next.
Shannon Scott Fernalia, the Vice Chair of the Board of Health. I just wanted to speak on, I'm also Precinct 4, wanted to speak on, to let the town meeting know that we voted unanimously favorable action on this article. We feel it closely aligns with the work of the Coalition for a Safer Community, which is housed through the board and the Department of Public Health. And additionally, one of the main worries we have comes, as it does for the school committee, from our youth risk behavior survey, which shows increased mental health concerns among our gender minority and ethnic minority students. And we feel this is a really important piece to kind of continue to support the work that many different groups in town are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Further on the question, Ms. Blackwell.
Megan Blackwell, Precinct 7.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, to the proponent, if this article were not passed, would there be another way forward for this important work to be done as an advisory committee? Could the select board, without the vote of town meeting, implement such a committee?
Ms. Brady?
Generally, there's always another way. The vote tonight is to establish this committee versus not establishing this committee, and not to establish this committee in deciding how it will be established.
Thank you. Further on the question, Mr. Wilson?
Yes, through you to the proponent, I saw that there was reference to access to legal counsel, and also reference to the town manager or his designee being charged with keeping the minutes. And I wondered how that's going to be controlled, and you know, it would seem that there would be a cost associated with both those items.
Mrs. Brady?
So we talked about this a bit. The advent of AI does allow us to do some things with taking minutes. It takes minutes pretty well. Does a lot of other things, but it takes minutes pretty well, and a lot of boards have been using it, either and they're doing a Zoom meeting and using the recording, or using Otter AI to do that. So that's something that we've talked about as a tool that's either no cost or low cost way of managing the minutes. The select board has been working with our town manager to make sure that access to town council is closely managed, so that we understand how town council is being used, who's accessing town council, and what they're doing. So we would continue to ask the town manager to maintain that same relationship, so that town council's time would be used appropriately and not excessively for anything that came under the HRC.
Thank you. Further on the question, Mr. Simpson?
Colin Simpson, Precinct 5. I'm also on the Committee on Government Regulations. I rise to support the idea of establishing the Human Rights Commission. However, neither the proponent nor the Select Board has made the case that this should be a bylaw. Our chair showed a long list of wonderful committees doing wonderful work that are not part of the bylaws. And I would prefer that we vote this. In order for me not to be reelected again, I move that we not endorse Article 4 as presented as a bylaw, standalone bylaw, and ask the Select Board to change its mind and to establish the Human Rights Commission as a committee of the Select Board. Thank you.
Is that a motion? Is there a second? Can you state a motion?
Simply that it not be a bylaw, but a commission of the Select Board. This is order. That motion's not in order. The meeting can't ask the Select Board to do something.
That's true. I would vote that out of order. Ms. Inferno?
Jennifer
That motion's out of order.
Jennifer Inferno, Precinct 3. Through you, Mr. Moderator, maybe to Mr. Boskiansky, my question was, although Chair Brady said that the Select Board had made a modification and had not made it a standing committee, and that it would be a chapter in the bylaws, my question was whether the COGR has voted again on the new structure, given that it was unanimously against previously. I would like to know if they would approve it this time.
Mr. Boskiansky?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. To answer the question, yes, we did have a poll. We didn't get together as a vote for the purposes of open meeting law, but I did had the opportunity to speak with each of the members, and we all felt the same way, that we endorse the idea. We just don't think the bylaws is the right place for it. So whether it was standing committee or special committee, and yes, section 2.5 of the bylaws allows for town meeting to establish committees. And so we think though most of those committees that have been established by town meeting, you can find on the website, not in the bylaws, but they are in fact working and doing good work. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Dr. Matthews?
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. Tim Matthews, Precinct 1. I also happen to serve as chair of the school committee and also as a trustee of the Network for Social Justice. So I want to make it clear that I'm not speaking in either of those capacities. I'm just speaking as a town meeting member tonight. I'm going to start just briefly with an anecdote. My family, obviously, I think most of you know that I'm married to a man who also happens to serve on town meeting. We have 2 small children. At Pride Fest, an organized event by the Network for Social Justice 3 years ago, my son and I were walking to our car, and while we were about to get into our car, a couple of teenagers in a Jeep drove by and screamed a very off-color epithet directed against LGBT people at my son, who at the time was 6 years old, and I. It's not something that I talk about very often, but for us to believe that these kinds of things, as Ms. Liz said, do not exist in this community, it is very untrue. In fact, I have personally been subjected to 2 incidents of anti-LGBTQ bias since our family moved to Winchester in 2018. I'm a little bit lost at what's going on here with the Committee on Government Regulations, to be perfectly honest, because I actually personally drafted a potential idea for this, this Human Rights Commission, something that, by the way, was formerly in our bylaw. It just had a sunset provision in the mid-'80s. So it's not that it hasn't been there before. So it's sort of a fascinating argument that's being made to me. But what I will say is I do know that these sorts of bylaws are in the bylaws of towns across the Commonwealth. This is not a unique structure that Winchester is coming to. And so with that, I'd like to ask 2 questions. First to the proponent, Ms. Brady, and then subsequently to our town council. What was the research for Ms. Brady? What was the research that was done to put together the bylaw in this particular way that led you to make the conclusion that Article 4 was the right way forward? And to Ms. North, our town council, can you explain the communities in Massachusetts, both surrounding us and that you may work with, and how they've handled human rights commissions? Because it's my understanding that this is actually, Winchester may be the only town surrounding us that does not currently have a human rights commission on the books, and I think it is a material and egregious omission that our town does not have this. Thank you very much.
Ms. Brady?
So we worked with and talked with several other communities around the Commonwealth, our neighbors in Stoneham, Arlington, Belmont, Lexington, to understand what they had done, how they had sort of set up their structure. Some of them have been around for a very long time, some more recent, like in Stoneham, how they had set up their structure and what they had done. Some have this established as a bylaw, some do not. It's not out of the norm for something like that to be a bylaw. We were very fortunate to have Rebecca working with us and on the working group, who is incredibly familiar with, and there's a Massachusetts Human Rights Coalition that she's familiar with and that she has contacted and has contact with, who she's been able to identify how these processes are run in other communities. So we did not find that, as you stated, that having this as a bylaw is an unusual thing, or we would be sort of a unicorn out there. Communities do this in a range of different ways. And frankly, in the discussion, and I've sort of indicated, we've moved past this, is not a town meeting committee in Chapter 2. It is a standalone Human Rights Commission within the bylaws. It is more than a town meeting committee. As a Human Rights Commission, it should be elevated to the level of a bylaw, and it needs the structure of the bylaws, which go beyond that of a simple committee that could be formed and unformed or changed over time. It's perfectly appropriate for it to be a bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. North, did you want to speak?
Through you, Mr. Moderator, good evening, town meeting members. It's nice to see you all. The question was other communities that I represent and my general understanding about the use of the Human Rights Commission in a bylaw. So only one of my communities does have a Human Rights Commission. I do think that it is something that tends to perhaps be more or less favorable with the pendulum of time, and I think it's swinging back to more communities who maybe had human rights commissions in the past and absolved them or dissolved them are starting to look at them again because there are so many more human rights issues that are coming forward that these communities want to address and deal with. And so they do it through ordinances and bylaws. And as the proponent said, it is certainly appropriate to do as a bylaw. And the bylaw gives you structure to not just the order, but the, well, first of all, it puts everybody on notice, right? It's in your bylaws. Anybody who looks to see what they can and can't do in the town of Winchester sees it in the bylaws. If it's just a town meeting committee or a committee of the select board, it's a lot harder to find that information about what the structure is and what the responsibilities and the roles are. So, and that's how my clients typically would do it, and that is what I would advise.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I
just wanted to quickly say I agree that it matches, being in the bylaw matches the gravity of the issues at play here. So thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Keogh. I think you were next, and then Mr. Nixon.
Eric Keogh, Precinct 5. To the proponent of the article, I'm just curious, what would be different if it was in the commission, other than, someone comes into our town and looks it up? And I think everybody in this room is for it. I'm not a government regulations expert, so I kind of rely on them knowing what's the rules and what should be a regulation and what shouldn't. So hearing them come up and say, well, this really shouldn't be a bylaw, I'm just curious from your perspective, what wouldn't you be able to do if it moved from bylaw to a commission? Is there something that changes how it...
I think the question was pretty much answered by town council, I think, in terms of visibility.
That's it. So it's just that it's not visible for someone that comes into our town to look at what we have for bylaws?
Well, Mr. Nixon.
Is it like money? Is it you can't do certain things if it's not
No, I
bylaw?
think visibility and elevating to the status.
That's the only thing. So I just heard that while I was in line. So
yeah. So we're going to restrict our comments to new questions of and issues. Mr. Nixon.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Chris Nixon, Precinct 1. I totally appreciate and support the impetus for the article, and I appreciate the presentation. I have a 16-year-old daughter who I imagine might herself approach an HRC one day. And so with her in mind, as I was listening to the presentation, what I noticed was, I think that early slide from Ms. Sills talking about the experience of students in Winchester. I want to make just a couple of observations, and then I have a couple of questions, one to Dr. Matthews and one to Dr. Hackett. So it's the purview of the school committee to adopt and modify policy. There are state and federal laws that protect the rights of students and families. Many of us in the room get that reminder every fall at the start of the school year. And there's a procedure and a process when a student feels that they've been bullied or subject to harassment. And while the school committee takes its role as policymaker very seriously, there's a firewall. The school committee has no eyeballs on specific complaints or reports because those actually fall under the jurisdiction of administration. And so as I was reading the packet and the handout tonight, I think what I'm dwelling on is if the HRC sees itself as a resource and would guide folks to appropriate resources, I would like a better understanding about how the HRC would engage with minor children, especially because we have the establishment of a committee that itself would include minor children. I'd like to understand maybe through Dr. Matthews, if I could, does the school committee have an understanding it could articulate how would the HRC have a monitoring role for, let's say, school committee policies that would address students? And because it's a public body that would meet monthly and produce minutes, I'd like to understand a little more about the privacy expectations that students and families might have. And that might go more towards Dr. Hackett. I suppose I'd just like to hear from both the school committee and the superintendent about how they envision the engagement with the HRC would work. But I appreciate very much the proposal in the article tonight. Thank you.
Anybody else you want to ask? So they're not the proponents, but if you would like to speak to it, you can.
Yeah, so just to be clear, the school committee voted 5-0 in support both of the original language as well as the updated language. I would say sort of two things. I was just sort of caucusing with Ms. Brady while we were listening to your question, so I apologize that this is going to be very much on the fly. I mean, I guess the way I personally see this is that the Human Rights Commission can be a sort of coordinating body that tries to figure out how to actually make the linkages across different, potentially siloed organizations within the town. Certainly when I did, I think I said earlier that I did some research on this particular topic and thought about proposing my own citizens petition around it when I first got on town meeting. And my understanding is that, sort of the overarching purpose of a Human Rights Commission is to be a place of connection and a place of dialogue and a place where if there are issues in one silo that also have relevance to another silo, those sort of heads can work together. So imagine if the police department gets involved in some kind of a complaint at the high school that has potentially a component that might come to the Human Rights Commission. Those on the Human Rights Commission could work with the police chief to try and understand that more and pull in the superintendent as well. I will defer to Ms. Brady because I think she actually wants to take the second part of this. But I think from a school's perspective, obviously we have student privacy provisions that we do have to abide by, and we would do that, but I think it would be, not to put words in the superintendent's mouth who I'm staring at right now, and he's trying to hide, not to put words in his mouth, but I can imagine that, to the extent that we are able to share information, or, for example, if families waive their right to have that information kept private because they want to actually have that conversation, that could happen. I think in terms of the FAQ that was actually put out for this particular article, there is a discussion about sort of what the communication and the linkages would look like, and I'll let Ms. Brady speak to that.
That was a really nice segue. We do actually have a piece in the FAQ around how we would establish an intake process for concerns. That would be developed once the committee was put in place. It would be part of, again, we have a bylaw that creates a committee, and then a committee is stood up, and the procedures and processes and actions are sort of played out under that committee. So the committee would establish an intake form and a process for managing that. Within that, as you can imagine, we would look at how to maintain confidentiality and privacy. With the superintendent or designee on the board, we would be able to address FERPA or concerns about minors. We also, many of us know, if you're on other boards and committees, that some things are handled in executive session due to privacy. So things like that would not be discussing in an open meeting, a complaint that came in that has people's names on it. There also would be appropriate discussion of how information is redacted should there be a records request to ensure that privacy and names are redacted in the most appropriate way possible. So these are not things that are out of the realm of what the committee would do or how we would be handled as a committee that involves high-level leadership within the town.
All right, thank you. Further on the question, I just want to remind everybody, new questions of fact only, please.
Catherine Mostow, Precinct 8. First time I've spoken, so nerve-wracking, but that I feel strongly about this. I actually work in professional conduct. I work at a university, and I respond to people who have been discriminated against or bullied based on all the different categories that were mentioned. And I strongly support the formation of a Human Rights Commission, and I think it would send a really powerful message to have it in the bylaw as its own bylaw. I think that we have work to do in this community, and I think there's a lot of discrimination that happens maybe under the radar if you're not in that category that's being discriminated against. And I think it would just bring a lot of awareness in our town, and also a place where people could go when they do experience it, and have a way to get resources and support. And my only consideration is like intake for something like that. You need to have someone who's trained to do that. It's a pretty sensitive thing, and so I would hope that would be part of whatever that commission, that they would make sure that that's a piece of it.
Okay, thank you. Further on the question, Ms. McCarthy.
Yes, Michelle McCarthy, Precinct 7. Thank you so much. I just have a quick question as I'm trying to decide on this, and thank you for all the work put into it. What does FinCom think? What are the financial impacts of voting yes? Who takes charge? Like, is the police chief getting involved? Are we paying for police officers to get involved? I'm just trying to understand the financial impact of this human rights violation. Thank you.
I don't think FinCom has ruled on this. There is no financial impact on it, correct? Do you want to?
Do we have like town employees working on it? I guess I'm just trying to understand that.
Ms. Brady?
Thank you.
So in describing, I don't think our slides are up anymore, in describing the makeup of the commission, there are 3 members who are town employees, and if this is established, we would work with town staff to ensure that the roles and responsibilities of the town employees are within the scope of their positions. So it's not like there would be no new hire to this. In the course of, it's not out of the realm of possibility that in the course of something that comes up, there is extended work that takes place, but I don't think a direct financial implication there. I think you had another piece to that question.
I was just wondering if the police chief, what the police department's involvement would be, and would that be taking resources?
Yeah. So
town council might know.
Again,
like
in the scope of the role,
okay.
The purview of their job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Further on the question?
Mike Alvin, Precinct 2. I just wanted to review on which boards, committees, and commissions that actually took a vote on this and what they were. I kind of missed that.
The select board as a proponent and voted unanimously. The school committee voted unanimously. The housing partnership board voted unanimously. Board of Health. The Board of Health voted unanimously. All in favor. Those are the boards who took positions ahead of town meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Jurius?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Dear Jurius, Precinct 8.
We cannot forget the Committee on GovRegs. Sorry. They were unanimously not in favor of this.
Mr. Jurius?
Okay. I had promised myself I would not stand up today and speak, but I guess
next time we're going to take that in writing.
Nah. Okay. So I sense that everyone believes that such a commission is an important part of our community. I think it's important that everyone has the support to be who they are on the inside. And so I had a whole thing here written about how for some reason we call things inhumane, which are actually rather human, because humans have a tendency to be inhumane. I want to really get down to 2 things: why this should not be a subcommittee of the select board, and why it should be in our town bylaws. So my impression from the discussion was that it is perfectly legal to put it in the section of the bylaws. It's not a town meeting committee. We are amending the bylaws, so that's okay. So why should it not be a subcommittee of the select board? I'm going to tell you a secret. I don't trust government. In particular, I think that if something is important to a community, it should be a part of the structure of government and not be at the whim of a committee. We may have a supportive select board now, But over the years, I've paid attention to this town's politics, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I've noticed that the select board tends to have people come on the board, they have different opinions about what's important. Some things get pushed to the wayside. There's a limited amount of mental focus you can have. It's a complicated job to be on the select board. But the need for this committee will always be there. So I'm concerned that by putting it on the select board, we are not elevating it to the importance it has, because we're saying this is sort of an appendage of a board which has other important things to think about. I also think there's a possibility of a conflict of interest, in the sense that if this board is a select board subcommittee and something arises, which hopefully never does, where the select board, there is an issue on the select board, that having the select board be in a position of power over this committee, I think would be bad. I think there's a level of independence that's required so that the committee can focus on what's important and not have to worry about any other pressures. So I fully am in support of putting this in the bylaws and making it a part of the structure of our town, so that it will always be there, and that will show the town how important this is to who we are and who we want to be in the future. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bagnani, and then Ms. Crowley, and then we're going to call the vote.
I will be much briefer because Mr. Jarius actually hit most of the points I was going to say. I'm going to hit 3 points really quickly, not to belabor what was a very eloquent statement. First, is there precedent? Second, can it be in the bylaws? And third, should it be in the bylaws? First, is there precedent? I think you've heard this. Every town that borders Winchester has one. Lexington started in 1963. That's the oldest. Stoneham started in 2019. That's the newest. Half of them are in bylaw. Half of them are select board or town moderator creations. There's ample precedent for this. Second, can it be a bylaw? I actually don't agree even with the original contention of the Committee on Government Relations. Neither does Town Council. Neither did Ms. Sullivan, who spoke from Precinct 1. If you read Section 2.11, this easily could be a standing committee. It says very clearly that standing committees shall be referred warrant articles for study. That means when they arise. It absolutely can be a standing committee. Nevertheless, the select board chair, as you've just heard, cured the issue by turning this into a standalone chapter. So it would have been fine where it was. It's doubly fine where it's going. And so you saw GovRegs, their opinion changed from, it's not that you can't do it, it's that we don't really feel like you should do it as a standing bylaw. It's not, you can't, it's that we sort of feel like you shouldn't. Why? People are asking the select board why. That has been eloquently answered. It's the permanence factor. It's the visibility factor. It's the fact that this includes not just the select board, but also the school committee, the Disabilities Access Committee, and the Council on Aging. 4 different boards. That's why it should be in the bylaws. And on the other side, all we're hearing is, well, we don't really know why it needs to be, so therefore it shouldn't be. Thank you.
Finally on the question, Ms. Crowley.
Hi, Meredith Crowley, Precinct 1, and I'm also a representative to the Committee on Government Regs. And for us, this is not, we all want to see a Human Rights Commission, but it was a discussion of what we saw in the presentation. And if you look at your packet, you will see a list of local communities. Of that list, one has an ordinance and one has a bylaw, and the others are fairly successful as policies that are operated through their communities. So this is everybody's choice in terms of how they think it would most be effective, but overall, we saw more communities being, with their commissions, run through a policy versus an ordinance or a bylaw.
Okay.
Just wanted to clarify that.
All right, thank you very much. It is moved and seconded that the town approve Article 4 as printed in the revised warrant. We're going to try a voice vote first, and if we have to, we'll take out our clickers. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. No. The motion carries.
Do you want to do a break?
That brings us to Article.
Do you want to break or do you want to go to 5?
No, I want to go to 5. That brings us to Article 5. Sure. We're going to go back to Article 4 to take a clicker vote. Everybody get out your clickers. So the motion is read. All those in favor, press 1 for in favor, 2 if you're opposed. 30 seconds.
Yeah, flip it to the vote when you're ready. Yes, and this is a bylaw, so it's a majority. Okay.
A majority is required.
Votes are rolling in. Everybody voted?
124 in the affirmative, 29 opposed. The motion carries. Article 5. Article 5 is brought by the Special Town Meeting Committee created in the fall of 2025 and is co-sponsored by the Rules Committee. On behalf of the Special Committee, Ms. Colella.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, town meeting members, boards and committees, residents. My name is Laura Colella, and I will be presenting Article 5 tonight, which is co-sponsored by the Special Town Meeting Committee and the Committee on Rules. I'd like to start with a brief history of how this article came to be. If you all remember, those that you were with us last spring at town meeting, as part of the decennial review, town meeting considered a bylaw to amend our rules of parliamentary procedure from Robert's rules to town meeting time. At that point in time, town meeting wasn't ready and decided that we needed further study of this important issue. So we established a committee. And over the summer of 2025, that committee, which was entitled the Parliamentary Rules Study Group, compared town meeting time and Robert's rules. And they, at the conclusion of their work, they prepared a very extensive report. They recommended that Winchester should go ahead and adopt town meeting time. However, they also noted that additional bylaws would probably be appropriate along with the adoption of town meeting time. In their report, they had a very comprehensive appendix that discussed the 29 specific areas of procedure that they had reviewed, and some of those areas they recommended further review. So back in fall of 2025, we again considered a bylaw amendment to change our procedural rules from Robert's rules to town meeting time, and we again decided further study was warranted, and we established another committee. And that committee was the Special Town Meeting Committee. That committee was composed of our current town moderator, Mr. Frateroli, a former town moderator, Heather Von Meering, a representative of the previous study committee, Susan DeLeo, a representative of the Committee on Rules, Brenda Mandiel, and a representative of the Committee on Government Regulations. And I drew the short stick there, so I'm here with you tonight. So our charge, their charge for our committee was to review unresolved procedures that were identified in the study group appendix, to recommend any changes to the existing bylaws or any new bylaws as appropriate to reconcile our best practices with town meeting time, and to submit articles and motions appropriate for the adoption of any of these proposed bylaws, and to report our findings and recommendations to you at spring town meeting. So our committee met several times over the winter and spring. We reviewed all 29 points of the prior studies committee with the assistance of Town Council Caris North. And ultimately, we decided that there are 3 areas that warrant a new bylaw, either to clarify our current practice or to resolve a conflict between current practice and town meeting time. We also noted that there are some practices, we also noted that there are some practices and processes of Winchester Town Meeting that are not really written down anywhere. And while these don't necessarily warrant passing another bylaw, it would be beneficial for these processes to be written down in a cohesive document. So we are recommending that we take the Guide to Winchester Town Meeting, which is a document that we already have. It's on our website, and that needs to be updated anyways. And we're recommending that these processes be included in that document. As the guide already exists, the guide that already exists includes an introduction to town meeting and a summary of our basic procedural rules. So it makes sense to use this guide to include the additional procedures and policies. And some of these policies would include the guidelines for presentation and written materials, the use of points of information during our meeting, a process of creating committees during our town meetings, information on motions for reconsideration, specifics on the duties of the town manager and the town clerk as they pertain to town meeting, education on neutral motions for discharging warrant articles, and education on our voting rules and procedures. So in addition to recommending that that town guide be updated, we're also recommending 1 bylaw and 3 new bylaws. So the first bylaw is section 3.1, and this is a bylaw amendment. This is recommending that we change our rules of parliamentary procedure from Robert's Rule to town meeting time. This has been studied now and recommended by 2 special committees of town meeting, and its favorable action has been recommended by both the Committee on Rules, which is our co-sponsor, as well as the Committee on Government Regulations. So section 3.2, this is the assistant moderator. It's a new bylaw that we're proposing. It simply codifies our current practice of using an assistant moderator, which has been done over the past several years intermittently. It clarifies that this assistant moderator has no authority to serve in the absence of the moderator. In town meeting time, there's language that uses assistant moderator and deputy moderator, substitute moderator. So we just thought it was prudent to clarify what we mean in Winchester when we say assistant moderator. Okay, section 3.6, this is another new bylaw, and this is a situation where town meeting time differs from Winchester's practice. With town meeting time, when you move the vote, ask for the debate to be ended and go right to the vote, you need to be formally recognized by the moderator. Winchester's practice has been to allow a cry of the meeting, where we can be at our seat, we stand and we say, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to move the vote. So if we went with town meeting time, there'd be a chilling effect on the way we've used the motion in Winchester Town Meeting, because to be formally recognized by the moderator, we're going to go and we're going to queue up at the microphone. So if there are several people ahead of you speaking and you wanted to move the vote, it might take a little while before you're formally recognized. So we decided that this is an appropriate bylaw to codify our current practice. And in the bylaw, you'll see it clarifies some of the procedures of this practice. One is that the moderator has discretion, and that is consistent with our current practice. Sometimes someone might move the vote, and it might be premature. The debate might have just started. There might be a number of people waiting to speak. So the moderator is going to have the discretion to say, this is not appropriate. We're going to wait on this. The additional points of this motion, the bylaw, are also that the person making the motion to move the vote cannot interrupt a speaker that already has the floor. And in addition, the person making the motion to move the vote can't go up to the microphone, make their points, and then move the vote and ask for the debate to be closed and essentially have the last word. So those are the points of that bylaw. And finally, section 3.10.24. We are asking to codify our consent agenda. This is a process that we've been using for several years now, and this bylaw simply codifies our current practice. It identifies who is reviewing the articles to put them in the consent agenda, and also what is required to remove an item from the consent agenda. And so that is it. A yes vote. If you vote yes tonight, these bylaws will be in effect for our fall town meeting of 2025. And we also expect that the updated guide to Winchester Town Meeting will be ready for our fall town meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. Can I get the recommendation of the Select Board?
The Select Board voted unanimously in favor of Article 5, and we look forward to seeing the updated guide well in advance of fall town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the Committee on Rules?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Brian McCarthy, Committee on Rules. Is there a typo in this that we need to discuss? I thought that was known. The bottom of page 2, it says non-resident. On page 1, it says non-resident.
Oh, that was a Scribner's error.
Scribner's error. Sorry,
So
Scribner's.
Yep.
we'll take care of it.
We'll take care of it.
Is that something we need to tell everybody? Or you just gonna?
No, that's
We'll just take care of it.
Okay.
just
Sorry.
a typo. Hold on.
Sorry, apologies.
Do you want to give your recommendation?
I do want to give my recommendation. The Committee on Rules, once again, recommends unanimously favorable action on this change. We believe that it will be more efficient for town meeting and still continue to keep the traditions that Winchester has developed over the years.
On behalf of the Committee on Government Regulations, Mr. Boskansky.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The committee, through you to the members, the Committee on Government Regulations voted unanimously in favor of this. There was a lot of great discussion. Laura obviously played an important role on the committee, and she led our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. So that wraps up our committee recommendations. Town meeting members wishing to be heard can make their way to the microphones. Anthea, did you have to say something? Okay. Nobody wants to be heard on this? You have to stand up to move the vote. Thank you. So it's been the practice to split up each of these bylaws, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of debate. So I'm going to do one voice vote on all 4 proposals. It is moved and seconded that Article 5 be adopted as written in the amended warrants. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. It is 8:22. We're going to break until 8:40. Town meeting is in recess.
All right. Guess I was silenced. Maybe by design. Anyway, it's Alan Iden here tonight at the second session of Winchester's Spring 2026 Town Meeting here at the Winchester High School. Town meeting is in recess at the moment. We've only taken up 2 articles tonight so far. Article 4 was a proposal to establish a Town Human Rights Commission. We heard that why was it needed? That there were 3,243 claims filed last year with the Mass Commission Against Discrimination, and about 467 hate crimes in the state, including anti-Semitic, an increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes. They said, the proponents said there were personal stories of harassment in Winchester schools. This commission would be made up of 9 members, 2 of which would be students. 3-year terms, except for the students, would be 1-year terms. And they said the commission would partner with the Network for Social Justice. The Committee on Government Regulations was strongly opposed to it because they said it should not be set up as a bylaw, but should just be an informal commission. They said it should be set up outside of town meeting, not as a bylaw. But we heard that testimony that many other committees have them set up as bylaws, set up by the town meeting. We heard from the president of Winchester A Better Chance that she said surrounding towns have commissions that also educate and inspire, don't just react to problems. So they actually work vigorously to inform the residents and encourage participation in things like Martin Luther King Day. In the end, town meeting passed it, established the commission by a vote of 124 to 29. Article 5 was revisiting something that came up in the last town meeting, which was to move Winchester, the operation of Winchester's town meeting, which has always been governed by Robert's rules, to a manual called Town Meeting Time, which apparently many, maybe even the majority of New England town meetings have adopted. It would be a change to the bylaw. There was a committee that studied this whole thing. They recommended a couple of changes to it. The first motion was to change the operation of town meeting to town meeting time. The second one was to establish the post of assistant moderator, not to be confused with like a substitute moderator. If the town moderator cannot serve, the town meeting would elect a temporary moderator, but the assistant moderator would be there to assist the moderator during town meeting. They also felt that moving the vote was not in concert with the way Winchester has traditionally done it. Apparently, town meeting time requires someone the moderator to recognize somebody to move the vote, and the committee felt there were problems with that. That somebody could get recognized and then immediately move the vote and shut off any other further discussion. So they recommended that we continue the tradition in Winchester that anybody at any time can rise to move the vote, and if it's seconded and the town meeting decides to close debate, that will happen. And so not waiting to be recognized by the moderator. And the final one was to codify what we've been doing for several years, and that's having a consent agenda. A consent agenda are generally articles in town meeting that are not expected to create any debate or controversy. They are passed as one vote. However, any town meeting member can ask that an article be removed from the consent agenda so that the town meeting can discuss and debate it. And in the end, those were all passed, and the Article 4 was passed by town meeting on a I believe it was a unanimous vote. So, as we said, town meeting is in recess at the moment. We'll continue our coverage in about 15 minutes, and I will be back with a recap of tonight's meeting at the conclusion.
Let's see how this goes. There are a lot of people here. All right, let's see how Capital goes. Because they're here for literacy, too. Town meeting members, let's come back into order, please. We have a lot of work to get done tonight. We're going to begin our second session of the night with Article 17, the report of the Capital Planning Committee. On behalf of the Capital Planning Committee, its chairman, Roger McPeak.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Feel reassured, Capital Planning is here to speed you through this meeting. We will not be long. To begin with, what are we doing this year so far? Well, thank you very much for passing the consent agenda. That was for us, that was Articles 18, 20, and 24. I point this out to you because Articles 18 and 20 are going to enable us to do the work on the Town Hall roof and bell tower supplemental funding. So thank you very much for passing that. What else are you going to hear from us in a moment? Brian will stand up and talk about the 3 capital projects that we're going to be presenting to you, ADA, MS4, and work on Everett Avenue drainage. The other bulk of the items that we'll be presenting are the South Reservoir Dam supplemental funding. Came close there, but we're going to need some more money to complete that project. As I just mentioned, with these exceptional closeouts and the bonding rescission that we did from the McCall and Ambrose roof project, we're going to be able to move forward with the Town Hall roof and bell tower project, and so we'll talk to you about that. I'm going to come back and talk to you about the Town Hall design and development documents. We thought that we were going to pull that, but we want to proceed with that, and I'll come back and talk to you about that in a moment. Article 25, was that supposed to be consent? I'm sorry. No, Article 25. Yeah, I thought it was consent. Carriage house demolition, so we'll speak to that as well. So really, that's what we're going to talk to you about tonight. In the end, I wanted to let you know that we have a new member on capital planning, Jason Roeder, who is joining us at this point. He takes over from Helen Filio, who had spent over 30 years in various roles in town meeting, from town meeting member, time on FinCom, long time on capital planning, many years as the chair. And it was through her grace, her knowledge, and her wisdom that she helped us through some really stressful times and really stressful years. And I would hope that you would all, while she's not here this evening, I hope you would all give her a round of applause and thank her. And that's all I have.
Thank you. It is moved and seconded that the Capital Planning Committee report of FY 2027 be received and filed. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. That brings us to Article 19. On behalf of the Capital Planning Committee, Brian Vernalia.
Is it in this one? I don't know. Give it to Mary Ellen. No, I just didn't know if it was part of this. Oh, no, it's its own presentation. Okay.
There it is. Yeah. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Brian Vernalia on behalf of the Capital Planning Committee. Last fall, I came before you with 19 motions, and that was not my choice. Tonight, I'm going to be a lot faster. People told me it was too much for one article. Everything crammed into 20 seconds per motion, and town meeting members were confused from project to project. So tonight, it'll be easier, faster. I come with just 3 motions, and hopefully you can tell them apart up there. They look totally different, right? So motion 1, and you got Kevin up there, so you can tell them apart, is to fund the ADA transition plan. It's hard to believe that the ADA became law nearly 36 years ago. It's also hard to believe that our first stab at tackling many of the access issues in town goes back 16 years. At the time, we established a transition plan and started to fund with annual allocations from the Capital Stabilization Fund. This plan was revised in 2019 and updated again in 2025. There are now over $3 million in projects necessary to bring Winchester into ADA compliance. Much like roads and sidewalks, the Capital Planning Committee does not review each and every project, but rather gives a fixed amount annually to the cause so that progress can continue. And every year we delay, prices increase. This year we are again recommending $125,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund. And as a reminder, the ADA is the law, and our funding transition plan is a necessary step to fulfilling our legal requirements. Motion 2, and you have Stuart up there, again, I want to tell them apart this year, is to fund our MS4 permit requirements. MS4, or Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Systems, is another law, this one to limit stormwater pollution. We're beginning a new 5-year cycle, and this funding represents necessary funding for year 1. We will need to develop a new overall plan for the next 5 years, as well as numerous other tasks. We're asking for $150,000 from the water and sewer retained earnings. We'll be coming back in future years to continue funding aspects of this project. And again, fulfilling the requirements of this is the law. And lastly, motion 3, and you've got Bob up there, is to fund engineering for drainage on Everett Avenue. You may have heard of the necessary repairs to the culvert under Everett Ave up by the boat club. During the planning for the culvert repairs, residents shared videos and stories of the street-level flooding on Everett Ave near the culvert during high-volume, short-duration storms. The funding proposed here is not specifically for the culvert repairs, but rather to assess the drainage in the area and model flooding. Hopefully this will allow mitigation, if possible, but will also give assurance that the culvert is right-sized when we tackle those repairs. Depending on the findings, we'll be back in the future years with culvert repair for certain, potentially mitigation measures for the neighborhood. We're asking for $50,000 in funding from the water and sewer retained earnings. And I told you I'd be quick, so there you have it. Kevin, Stuart, and Bob, or better known as ADA, MS4, and Everett Ave. Hopefully you can tell them apart this year, unlike last year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The recommendation of the Select Board, please.
The Select Board voted unanimously in favor of all 3 motions on Article Kevin? Motion Kevin? Motion 1, ADA. The board hopes that the funding that's set aside for ADA can be used in the repair of Town Hall.
Can we get the recommendation of the Finance Committee, please?
FinCon recommended favorable action on all 3 motions for Article 19, although they might want to reconsider given that the minions are part of this presentation.
All right, town meeting members, please make your way to the microphones if you would like to ask a question. Seeing nobody, we're going to take these 3 motions one by one. The first motion, number 1, put my screen up, please, is a 2/3 requirement. It is moved and seconded that the town appropriate $125,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund established under Chapter 69 of the Acts of 2002 for implementation of the ADA transition plan, including equipment, construction, engineering, and all other costs incidental and related thereto. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries with a 2/3 unanimous. Motion number 2, moved and seconded that the town appropriate $150,000 for MS4 permitting, of which $9,800 is from account number 900298843 MS4 permit year 3, and $140,200 is from water and sewer retained earnings. Majority vote required. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Motion number 3 is moved and seconded that the town appropriate $50,000 from water and sewer retained earnings for an engineering analysis of the drainage system in the Everett Avenue area. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. That brings us to Article 21, page number 32 in your green packet. On behalf of the Capital Planning Committee, Mr. McPeak.
This is probably the best part of this entire slide, just looking at the lovely reservoir right now.
Hold on. Can somebody confirm this is Winchester? Anybody? Okay, thank you.
Actually, it's Medford. Sorry, it's our water, but it's physically located in Medford. Beautiful view. So this project didn't go exactly the way that we'd hoped. We'd initially allocated $6 million, and we'd gotten $1 million in grant funding from the outside, from the federal government on this. Because of growth, specifically, the underwater work that's out there, the front end boulders called riprap that you see lining on the front face of the dam was far larger than what our engineering estimates thought were going to be. And then we were helped out by our predecessors who said, oh, we got to get rid of some asbestos. Let's just put it on the backside of the dam and bury it. So the contractor digging down did not find that very funny, and we had a lot of additional work. That sort of work and finding things like that led to disagreements with the contractor, and we sort of ended up parting ways with the contractor before the project was complete. So we need, to complete the project in total, we need $830,000. Now, we aren't asking for all of that right now. We've got unexpended bond funds from the North Reservoir Dam project, and it's in the motion that unfortunately the moderator will have to read. And we've got account closeouts that we can also utilize. So we're asking for about $330,000 in additional bonding authority to complete the project. We're also out looking for more awards. What's the right word? Grants, if we can find them. So that may mitigate it. We may not need all of that authority, but in order to be sure, we're asking for $330,000 in additional bonding. So this is what it looked like down below. You can see the trees on the back of the dam there, on the south side of the dam, and this is sort of what it looks like now. And you can see what we have left to do, which is a fair amount of work, but that's where we stand. So we're asking for total authority of $830,000, of which $330,000 is actually new authority, and the rest is transferring unexpended bond funds and closing out accounts. Thank you.
Can we get the recommendation of the Select Board, please?
The Select Board voted unanimously in favor of Article 21.
Thank you. Finance Committee?
The chair of the Finance Committee, who doesn't know what an appropriate image is to use for his presentation, said that I should make sure to introduce myself. I'm Jerry Sheehan. I'm on the Capital Planning Committee and a Precinct 3 town meeting member. FinCom unanimously approves of this article.
Thank you. Any town meeting members want to be heard on this? Mr. McCarthy? Just to remind everyone, this is a 2/3 majority required, and a 2/3 vote required, and because it's a borrowing bond, I need to read the whole thing. Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Brian McCarthy, Precinct 4. Through you to the proponents, I have two questions. One, of the initial funding, how much have we spent approximately? And number two, is there any legal potential problems with the separation from the original contractor that may cost us money that way?
My understanding is that we have effectively expended all of the original funding that we have. With regard to legal consequences, I'm getting told there are none, that we have resolved all of the legal consequences.
Thank you. Any other town meeting members? All right, the question comes before town meeting. It is moved and seconded that an additional $830,000 is appropriated to pay the cost of the repair and construction of improvements to address deficiencies at the South Reservoir Dam, including flattening of the upstream and downstream slopes, tree removal, and other improvements to the dam site for the payment of all costs incidental thereto, that to meet this appropriation, 200,996 closer shall be transferred from available monies to fund. I can't see anymore. Okay. To fund 8904 Thornbury Road Pumping Station, $477,742.67 shall be transferred from the unexpended bond proceeds as set forth below, for which the projects are complete and for which no liability remains. And the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow $329,261.01 pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7(1), or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, and that the town manager shall be authorized to have oversight of the project, and that in accordance with Section 4-2 Town of Winchester Home Rule Petition, and the town manager shall have authority to enter into contracts, approve payment with respect to the project. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. That brings us to Article 22. On behalf of the Capital Planning Committee, Enzo Roscinato.
This is all it was given. That's good. Sorry.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator and Town Meeting. My name is Enzo Roscinato, Precinct 1 and Vice Chair of the Capital Planning Committee. Today I'm presenting on Article 22 for additional funding of $2.4 million for the Town Hall roof and the Town Hall clock tower. This was appropriated and approved back in Fall Town Meeting 24 for $4.975 million that originally covered the full span of the library roof, library windows, Town Hall roof, and Town Hall clock tower. So given the price tag of the project, I thought it made sense for us to kind of quickly go back through, all the way through the history of the project. It started almost 5 years back in Fall Town Meeting of 2022, where the initial schematics were approved for $150,000 to scope several roofing projects across town, including Town Hall and the library. That followed with the next year at Fall Town Meeting 23. Some of you might remember this is the year of the engineering projects, right, where capital planning put forward 11 different engineering projects to better size and plan for major expected renovations across town. As part of that ask, engineering was approved and completed for Town Hall and library roof, plus the library windows, as well as the Town Hall clock tower, amongst a lot of other projects. Then, in Fall Town Meeting 24, CPC asked for and got approved construction funding for $4.975 million across the four projects. But as that project started, it quickly was determined that that estimate for all four projects was not going to be nearly enough, so the initial scope was limited to just the library roof and windows. That, as you know, is well underway, and you can see it. It's under construction right now, currently going on at the library. Coming up to the last Fall Town Meeting, as part of our capital planning report, we included an additional $1.5 million estimate to complete the rest of the scope, which included Town Hall roof and Town Hall clock tower, slated to come to Springtown Meeting. And now that brings us here today to Springtown Meeting, where the actual estimate now is increased to $2.4 million. So starting with the roof, in the time since the initial estimate, we now have a higher than expected cost associated with repairing the slate roof. Part of this roof dates back all the way back to the original construction back in 1887. Initially, we expected repairs would be to select areas of the roof, including the front eyebrow window, dormer, out back, and the rear spire. However, as you can see with the icicle buildup here in the bottom right picture, that there's ice dam damage in several areas of the roof. So a larger, more comprehensive roof replacement is recommended. On a side note, the the icicles here look very similar to what my house looked like in January, so I think I'm a little disturbed by that because I think that means I'm going to have to go to the attic soon. So going on to the clock tower, the repairs are both internal and external masonry repair work. So you can see here in a couple of the pictures how some of the brickwork has started to deteriorate. We already had a brick area near the clock face that was so dangerous that we had to do an emergency repair to prevent loose bricks from falling out. Internally, we want to replace the copper floor underneath the bell, which is open to weather conditions, and we also need to replace those steep stairs on the far right there that go down into the clock tower, which are also deteriorated. These stairs need to be traversed a minimum of once a week by DPW because that's how they wind the clock. Overall, Town Hall has many, as you guys know, many glaring needs in the capital plan, and it was going to be a major priority in the expected override for capital. Those plans and those needs are still TBD, but given the override failure. But this project, as you can see, has been in the works for many years because it's so critical. Construction costs continue to escalate. Delay has already increased the cost significantly, and generally, masonry and roof repair projects is not where you want to delay, as they can get worse really quickly. So, in conclusion, I ask you to support Article 22. Thank you.
Thank you. Select Board.
The Select Board voted unanimously favorable action on Article 22.
Thank you. Finance Committee.
FinCom voted unanimous favorable action on Article 22.
Thank you. Any town meeting members want to be heard? Okay, it is moved and seconded that an additional $2,400,000 is appropriated to pay the cost of roof repair and/or construction at Town Hall and the Town Library. The renovations of the Town Hall bell tower and the replacement of windows at Town Library, and for the payment of all costs incidental and related to, that to meet this appropriation, $1,100,000 shall be transferred from the Building Stabilization Fund established under Chapter 69 of the Acts of 2002, and the Treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow $1 million pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 6(1), or 7(1), or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town, therefore, that the town manager shall be authorized to have the project in accordance with Section 4-2 of the Town of Winchester Home Rule the Home Rule Charter of the town manager shall have authority to enter into contracts and approve payments with respect to the project. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. That brings us to Article 23. On behalf of the Capital Planning Committee, Roger McPeak.
Thank you. So, if you were reading the town member meeting association notes, you saw me say we were pulling this when the override failed. Speaking with the town manager, he thought that this was critical to move forward with, and so what we're looking to do is eventually a large basket of projects in Town Hall. It's not a question of if. These things are going to have to get done. We're going to have to replace the HVAC system eventually. You authorized $500,000 just to keep the existing one on its feet. That's throwing good money after bad, but that's the situation we find ourselves in. When we do that, we trigger ADA requirements in that building. When we do all of those things, we're going to have to open up walls. We're going to have to move people out of their existing place because you can't have people with half the walls torn down and overhead missing and things like that. that is the time that you want to make sure that you do all the other things that you need. Replacement of the fire suppression systems, upgrading of the electrical systems. This building has not been upgraded significantly since the late 80s. So we want to make sure that we do that. So what we want to do is fund design and development documents to get architects and engineers in to give us a comprehensive plan on how we would attack a project of this size so that we don't find ourselves 6 months after we've completed going, we really should have done this when the walls were open, and things like that. And give us a way to coordinate all of this work together in a logical, complete, and sequential fashion. As I say, when we take this on eventually, and we will take this on eventually, hopefully in the very near future, we're going to want to have a quarterback that has already told us these are the steps that you're going to be taking, and that's what the development of these design and design documents will do for us. That's the scope of the project.
Thank you. Select Board?
The Select Board voted unanimous favorable action on Article 23.
Thank you. Finance Committee?
FinCom voted unanimous favorable action on Article 23.
Mr. Lamanche, are you coming to speak? The Planning Committee? Planning Board, sorry. Very touchy, the Planning Board.
The Planning Board also voted unanimously to support this article.
Dr. Scott?
The Board of Health voted unanimously in favor of this. Our staff work in Town Hall, and it is becoming a medical issue over time if we don't address this.
Thank you. Does any town meeting member wish to be heard? Okay, the question comes before town meeting. 2/3 vote required. It is moved and seconded that the town appropriate $200,000 to pay the costs of architectural and engineering services to prepare design and development documents to ensure appropriate scope and coordination of various projects related to the renovation of Town Hall, including but not limited to HVAC improvements, ADA compliance, electrical and network upgrades, fire suppression system renovation, restroom improvements, window replacement, structural repairs and modifications, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto. To meet this appropriation, $200,000 shall be transferred from the Capital Stabilization Fund established under Chapter 69 of the Acts of 2002. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. That brings us to the main event of the evening, Article 25. On behalf of the Select Board, School Committee, and Capital Planning Committee, Stephanie Menagerie.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Stephanie Mignargi. I am here tonight on behalf of the school committee to present with a heavy heart our recommendation for the demolition, including asbestos remediation and grading of the site of the carriage house on the grounds of Ambrose Elementary School for an estimated cost of $300,000. We understand that decisions like this one carry weight, and we want to be clear with you tonight about how we arrived here. We cannot undo the years of deferred maintenance that brought the carriage house to its current state. We can only respond to the reality that is in front of us today, which is that we can't do anything practical with it, and this is the cheapest option available to a growing liability. The building's location is on an active school campus, which means it cannot be accessed or utilized during school hours, as it would be a disruption to classrooms and a Massachusetts Department of Transportation designated safe route to school. Therefore, any practical use, such as affordable housing or a community center, is severely limited. Options that I have explored this past year with members of town meeting, as well as the Historic Society and Commission. The only people with access to the driveway are WPS and Sanborn employees, and they run operations at different hours to avoid congestion. Our primary responsibility is to the safety of the students and staff of Ambrose Elementary School, as well as the safety of the broader community. Ambrose is a public facility, It is rented to various community organizations, and over recent years, there have been increasing reports of suspicious activity with can openers and towels, hairnets being found in and around the property, indicating someone taking shelter in the structure. Also, a high chair that was once inside the carriage house was found outside the carriage house with no explanation. On a recent visit that I personally went through, we found drug paraphernalia and condom wrappers. And recently, beyond the immediate safety concerns and rising costs of liability insurance outpacing 2.5%, we have the structure assessed and the findings are sobering. The cost of restoration to bring the carriage house to a safe and usable condition is substantial. Beyond the $6 million price tag that town meeting declined back in spring 2022, with 84% of town meeting members voting no. Construction costs have certainly not gotten cheaper since then. It is for these reasons, the safety of our students, staff, and community, the prohibitive and ever-increasing costs of restoration, and the structural limitations of the site, that the school committee, select board, and capital planning committee are recommending positive action on Article 25. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Select board.
The select board is a co-sponsor of this article and voted favorable action.
The finance committee.
Be no surprise to town meeting that FinCom is not in sync on this particular issue with the select board and the capital planning committee. We voted unfavorable action based on the email that went out to town meeting members earlier today. And our theory for voting unfavorably on this was to give the Historical Society 1 year to see if they can raise the money to make the necessary repairs on the carriage house.
Thank you. Town meeting, Mr. McPeak.
There's no joy in this. There's nobody happy about any of this. But we've been down this road for a long time. This has been a subject of conversation for over 20 years. We've been through at least 2 cycles where demolition has been proposed and proponents have come forward and said, let us look at finding money to rehabilitate it and find a new use. And then it just sort of fades away. And we've done this is our 3rd cycle in this case. It's not a costless decision to leave this building there. We pay a premium on our insurance bill for this building. It's nominal, $3,000 a year, but it's not costless. Perhaps the biggest issue is the risk that comes associated with this. The building does have asbestos in it. It does have mold in it, but we know that people are going into that building. Right now, the asbestos is well contained, and you can do a remediation on it and, of limited cost. If someone gets in there, knocks some things around, knocks the asbestos loose, the entire building becomes contaminated, and now you're dealing with an entire building as if it was completely contaminated with this. So it's not a risk-free option, just leaving it sitting there. I would like to just say you've got school committee recommending this, select board recommending this, capital planning recommending this. This is a good hint that it's time to move forward with this project. But again, none of the people on any of these committees are satisfied with this, but we've been down this road a lot of times, and it's time to move forward.
Thank you. We'll open it up to town meeting members to ask questions. Mr. Swanton.
Yes, I'm Bill Swanton from Precinct 5. I'm also a board member at the Winchester Historical Society. I did send out the email that was just referenced this morning. Probably 10 of you or 12 of you didn't get it, bounce back. I'm sorry. I can get you a copy if that really helps. We think that this is not a good idea to do right now. We would like to see the carriage house reused. And the big difference I think we would like to see is that it be reused in a way that does not trigger huge ADA requirements. And basically initially looking at it from the point of view of a large exhibit, lecture, and performance space on a single floor initially, and basically have the basement and the second floor be unfinished space that would not be used at this time, so that we could get the building to be something useful for far less money than the $6-7 million projects that have come across. Those have required actually making the entire building on all 3 floors public space, which greatly increases the cost of doing any of the ADA paces. There has been a group of people from a variety of town organizations and boards looking at this, as Mr. Yarney said, but I think we have to do a little bit more work and try to come up with a plan here. And that's what we would like to do. We'd like to ask you to vote against this article tonight, and then therefore give the people in the town, these concerned citizens, a chance to try to make a plan that is more affordable, and also to raise money outside of the town budget to actually make this happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further on the question, Ms. Cooney?
Hi, my name is Nora Cooney, and I live at. And for those of you who are not familiar where 10 Oneida Road is, the carriage house is about 50 yards from my home. My kids and a bunch of other neighborhood kids who attend Ambrose cut through my yard to walk to school and walk within 5 feet of the carriage house twice daily. While I think historic preservation is very important, and I fully support efforts to maintain the character and history of our beautiful town, those efforts and the taxpayer costs associated with those efforts should not be unreasonable, irresponsible, or wasteful, and certainly should not risk harm to our kids in our community. And unfortunately, any effort to delay demolition to try to preserve the carriage house after many, many years of neglect and inaction is all of these things. Why do we need to take action now? I understand that it's been vacant for years. Believe me, I look at it and walk by it daily. And until recently, I didn't think much of it apart from being a terrible eyesore. But after learning of the evidence that people have been regularly inside it, potentially even living inside it, I'm very concerned. Whether it's just local kids using it as a place to drink or smoke, putting themselves at risk because it's structurally unsound, and also putting our neighborhood at risk with fires, or even more concerning, someone potentially squatting there, which is incredibly unsafe given that it's on school property and in a place where we know that kids regularly walk near, often on their own. In the face of this evidence, we must now take action. The fact that nothing has happened yet doesn't mean that it won't. The same way you have to secure a pool, even if someone hasn't drowned in it yet. This is a known hazard and a risk, and the town and all of us are now on notice and have duty to take immediate action. As Stephanie maintained, demolition is the only reasonable and responsible action at this point. As the state of the town showed us, our town has very real needs that are not being met, including the repair of other historic buildings that are actually in use, like Town Hall. It would have been great if we could have saved the carriage house 10 years ago. But when you don't act, you lose that right. The carriage house is a cautionary tale as to what happens when you don't properly maintain and preserve your assets in a timely manner. The project becomes so expensive, it becomes wasteful and unconscionable and an unreasonable use of taxpayer money to remedy. And to be honest, it's very troubling to me that after a failed override, as we're laying off teachers and not fulfilling firefighter roles and have a laundry list of other capital needs, that we're even discussing the idea of spending millions on a small, unused building that, 1, hasn't been used in years, 2, does not meet any pressing town need, and 3, is in such a state of disrepair that it'll be extremely expensive to fix. To me, this feels irresponsible, tone-deaf, and a terrible message to send to the town. Given our town's financial situation, there's absolutely no chance a renovation happens anytime soon, and it is very likely it never happens at all. I certainly will not vote to support it. So it'll just be more inaction and face a very real risk. And as we are all on notice, that is not acceptable. Please vote favorable action to fund the demolition of the carriage house.
Thank you. Further on the question, Mr. Colts.
Hi, I'm Bob Colt, Precinct 6. I was the longest standing board member of the Winchester Historical Society. And so we spent years developing that site, the Sanborn House. And hand in glove of that site is the carriage house. For people that haven't been up to the Sanborn House, you see what the Historical Society did in renovating that building into a grand building. It is not the time to demolish it. We don't have the extra $300,000 this year. The Historical Society would like to have the ability to develop plans over the next 6 months or a year, and there is money in this community to develop that building. It was a grand building that, as the road went up, winding up the hill to it, it went into the carriage house, and the carriage house had a carousel that took 6 cars in as the parking area, which was very unique architecturally. This town should not be demolishing assets that are historical. This is 120 years old or so, and it can be done. It's just that time is needed. And so I implore people and ask you not to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further on the question, Ms. Pryor?
Good evening, Michelle Pryor, Precinct 4. I'm rising mainly as the former select board chair when we were going to bring this to fall town meeting. We discussed this last summer, worked with the school committee on multiple properties, accessing the Mystic School to the town where our rec department lives, having a plan for the carriage house as part of the state of the town. We talk about our capital and the needs that we have, right-sizing our assets, removing assets and buildings from the list. Like the Chamber of Commerce building will come off the asset list when Waterfield Place is developed. This is an asset that hasn't been maintained in 20 years. I appreciate everyone's argument. I very much do. Having grown up in an 1896 Victorian, I love an old house. However, the time was probably 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or let's say August of 2025, when a demo delay was imposed on this property. We, Select Board, School Committee, Capital Planning, were looking to bring this forward in the fall. A demo delay was imposed. It expires in August. We waited. We will let that play out. But the Historic Society coming in now, I appreciate, but it's 10 months later from when our intent was clearly signaled. It is a risk and a safety hazard. Anything that happens in that building is on the town's liability, not the school's. It's a modest insurance policy, but police, public safety, and response is a municipal cost and it's a municipal risk. And we all know what's going on to some degree, and that risk is real. And I want to point to the override did not pass. That is true. The funding source for this is the Capital Stabilization Fund, not free cash, not the thing we're very much concerned at looking at in our entire budget season. We have the funds. We have agreement from the school committee as the caretaker, capital planning with funding, which we appreciate, and the select board very much looking to not be on the hook for a risky building that we don't own, but we are, otherwise responsible for anything that goes on in it. I urge you to vote yes in favor of this article. Thank you.
Thank you. Further on the question, Ms. DeLeo?
Susan DeLeo, Precinct 5. I live on Taft Drive, which is the street that directly opposes the entrance to Ambrose, the Carriage House, Sanborn House. I support Article 25 strongly. We all moved to Winchester, chose Winchester, love Winchester because there are beautiful old buildings. However, it is unfortunately time to demolish this building because it has now become a liability. It's no longer an asset. When my kids were first old enough to ride their bikes down to Ambrose, because we live on a hill, and that's like a great place to ride your bike, we would always say, just don't go near that carriage house building. Just stay on the driveway over there. It's just not safe. And I also ran the Greens group at Ambrose for 2 years, which is a wonderful program of growing vegetables and lettuces and all these great things for kids to learn about, which is right next to the carriage house. And it was quite a chore to keep the kids, when they were disposing of the old materials, from interest in the carriage house. So I strongly support Article 25, and please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Further on the question, Ms. Musto?
Hi, Caitlin Musto, Precinct 4.
I'm also in favor of Article 25. While I appreciate the effort and intentions behind this last-minute proposal, it doesn't change the fundamental reality. The Sanborn Carriage House has been neglected for so long without a viable funded plan for reuse. The community has had over 24 years since it's last in use, and unfortunately, a viable vision has yet to come to fruition from that. We're now being asked at the 11th hour to halt demolition based on a half-baked concept, not a fully developed project. There's no secured funding, no finalized design, and no demonstrated ability to execute what has eluded the community for many years. The fact that this effort is only now coalescing underscores the very issue before us. Sustained action is just not going to materialize. The question before us is not when we spend the money, if we spend the money, but when and how much. Allocating $300,000 now to demolish the structure is the most physically responsible option that the town has. Delaying this decision again, I mean, we just delayed it for a year. It's just going to increase the cost over time as the building continues to deteriorate. And I'm not going to harp on all the other points that everybody else has made, but it is a serious safety risk. There's evidence of squatters, there's evidence of suspicious activity happening at the site, and it's directly adjacent and on the grounds of an elementary school where children as young as 5 are playing. So I urge you to consider voting in favor of Article 25. Thank you.
Thank you. Further on the question, Mr. Roeder.
Yep, great. Thanks, everybody. I'm Jason Roeder, Precinct 5. Also, as noted, a new member of the Capital Planning Committee, but I'm just speaking for myself as a Precinct 5 member. I'm also an Ambrose parent. I had kids go there for 8 years. As recently as 2 years ago, and I would say that in my personal experience, the carriage house was never brought up as a safety concern. I didn't hear parents talk about that. I didn't hear anything about that, although it's, of course, incredibly important. So today I went to the Winchester Police Department and I asked them about this. I said, have there been issues? Do you have anything on record? They did have one record from about 2 years ago when a door alarm went off on the carriage house and it was found to be ajar. Police officer went, took a look, said nothing else seems to be happening. This is what the report says. And that's the only thing they have on file. So while everyone can have their impression of what's happening, it is not at all clear to me that this is a hazard different than it has been for many, many years. The Historical Society, by the way, works out of the Sanborn House. They look at this every single day, and I am under the understanding that if they saw something troubling, they would raise their hand and say something about it, and that has not happened. So I'm a little struggling to reconcile some of these comments with some of these other data sources about what the hazard level might be. Beyond that, I think just 2 other points and then one question is there is a new, and I would admit, very recent effort by the Historical Society, an 11th and 59th minute, if you want to call it that, to say, wow, this is really now or never. It's in your hands. This building may go away forever, or we may take a different path. And they have responded to that challenge and are willing to lead an effort. As recently as a few hours ago, there was other discussions amongst committees to try and find a compromise, and that didn't pan out at the last minute, but there is plenty of room here to see if we can make one more shot at this. As noted, I think there are private fundraising opportunities available. This is not something that is going to have to be on the town's books. I think we all get that. And speaking of the town's books, I think we heard Finance Committee say that they do not recommend this money at this time. There is not an urgency to spend this money at this time. There is urgency on other things like the bell tower and the town hall that is like literally losing bricks and things. So there are very important needs that are higher priority than this. We've heard that from FinCom. The select board slide from yesterday had 2 projects in the red zone, one of which was the carriage house. That indicates to me this is not really their top priority. So I think there's a lot of reasons why finding a way to pause this is beneficial to the town and does not materially enhance risk. So my question...
I'm sorry, you've expired your time. It's 3 minutes, and you've already reached that. Sure. Yes.
The slide that was presented on Monday evening was showing the select board's articles that were being presented. The difference between the 3 categories were those that increased revenue or decreased costs, did not have a distinct cost to the town, and that had a one-time cost of free cash. It was not a prioritization of articles. These were all articles that the select board was sponsoring.
Thank you.
Fair, good. Can I just ask my one question?
You used your 3 minutes. There's a lot of people online, and I do need, not that Mr. Dixon's reputation precedes him, but I just want to remind him of the 3-minute rule. Vince?
Thank you. Precinct 3, Vincent Dixon. I speak, if you will, ex cathedra as a historian. I think many of you know I have done a variety of history connected to this wonderful town. This is an example of, if you think about a good restaurant, if you whether you use them or not, they have both a salt and a pepper shaker. Sanborn House has been taken by the Winchester Historical Society. If you've not been there, you should go. It is regularly used as programming. I think the viability and credibility of that society in taking this project on, willing to do it, perhaps it is a late hour, but the school department has had custody of that property for a long time, and in a much larger budget could have provided some money to provide some minimal maintenance so that we wouldn't be in the current situation. In fact, it's my understanding that in recent months at least 2 different companies have gone in. They found the building to be structurally sound, not surprising since it was built by the same people that built Sanborn House itself. The credibility of that project for our town is a small, steady, growing town. We, in fact, as the library work is being done, at least one group is going to have its meetings in Woburn. That suggests we don't have the full capacity in a growing town for enough public facilities or a highly engaged population. For those who might be concerned about security, which as we understand actually fairly I have suggested perhaps 2 or 3 cameras, security cameras, could be put up at minimal cost, which would be viewable by the police station. Though this is a late project in terms of recognizing it, I think that it is a point that we have an opportunity here to not go the way of Scully Square, where beautiful buildings were torn down, and people say, well, we didn't like the bad buildings, but we lost the good buildings. We have the choice here to do that at cost. I would point out, for those who may not know, Stone Zoo and Franklin Park Zoo decades ago were about to go under. A innovative project was created, 501c3, so a public entity could be replaced by a 501c3, which has successfully gained private money, corporate money, and admissions for various events. That's an example nearby of a hybrid project that worked to save a facility that was publicly accessible and needed. We do need the additional capacity of this. It is a structurally sound building. For many of you do know I've been active in the town. I would stake my personal credibility on the ability of the Winchester Historical Society and the newer people to put something together, and I would ask 6 months to a year is not unreasonable when $300,000 of cash flow is not in our budget at this moment. And that's, the actual cost at the moment is about $2,000 to $3,000 a year in insurance, which is quite minimal. I'd ask you to grant a delay of a year, stipulate it if you want, appoint a committee, perhaps of the town meeting, that has some specific authority to recommend project and solutions to this. But I think that we need the extra time, and I think it would be proven by the credibility. And thank you.
Further on the question?
Thank you.
Thank you. Marilyn Gagalis, Precinct 1. My question, it's been asked, but my question is why now? A little history lesson. First of all, it was at the request of the school department to have this property given to them for their use, and that has never materialized. The last time there was any thought about use was 2016. So I ask again, why now? Most importantly, considering current budgetary constraints, it seems unreasonable to spend $300,000 to demolish a building to provide parking or whatever, yet alone a historical property, when those funds could be used very clearly in other departments of the town. In addition, both the Historical Commission and Historical Society, they have spoken and have provided information to this town meeting via an email that the building has been determined to be safe. Within the last 12 months, these studies have been done. it is safe and could become a possible asset and an annual and potentially a revenue source for the town if it is renovated with private funding, not necessarily with town money. Although there have been rumors concerning break-ins and dangerous trash, there was one small complaint, as described by a former speaker, but there were no other police reports concerning these rumors, and the carriage house has been all boarded up, preventing entry. I'm wondering if there is a reason why DPW couldn't make sure that it is secure. It looks secure, but they could perform perhaps inspections once in a while just to make sure that the boarding is still there. So why should we rush this demolition without exploring all options to preserve a piece of history and develop a new asset? I would suggest we wait. I would vote unfavorable action for this.
Thank you.
And just one last thing. Just an FYI, we talk about neglected buildings and that this is near the school. Well, there is a severely neglected cement structure with serious dangerous deterioration of concrete and concrete platforms surrounding it, directly next to the brand new playground on Leonard's Field. And as a matter of fact, the children play on this defective piece of property, which hasn't received any attention. And that's close to a school and a playground as well. We all just have to deal with these things as they come, and I don't think there's a rush on this.
Thank you. Just want to remind everyone, new information only. We have a question?
Sorry, Tim Matthews, Chair of the School Committee. I just wanted to, I'm going to have Ms. Mignardi come up and actually answer the question that was asked if Mr. Moderator is interested in having that question answered. But
Under a minute.
I just wanted to make the point first that 2016 was not the last time this came. In 2022, Springtown meeting considered a rebuild plan for central office of the Winchester Public Schools at that site. 82% of town meeting members voted no on that plan in 2022. So just to correct that one point, 2016 was not the last time it was brought up. It was 2022 when 82% of town meeting voted against the reconstruction of the carriage house to become central office for WPS. I'll let Ms. Mignardi take the question.
Yeah, so the question was, why now? If we can project my slide that says, why now? In addition to the increasing reports that are witnessed by people that walk by the structure twice a day, every day, there's increasing vandalism, and there's also a hole in the roof that's been there for several years. And in fact, the students on the 3rd floor at Ambrose can look inside the carriage house, and they see a family of raccoons come out every once in a while, and all the elements come in. They've taped it off on the windows to see how much the hole has grown. And the condition of the building is certainly not getting better, and construction costs are not going to get any cheaper.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Amy Beliveau, Precinct 7. I'm speaking to you all today in favor of demolition of the carriage house. I have personally recently been inside the carriage house where I met with a contractor, a member of the school committee, and a member of the historical commission to assess the building. What we found was that the carriage house is in a complete state of disrepair. Although the building is not going to fall over tomorrow, it has some serious structural concerns that make it a safety hazard to anyone that is on Ambrose grounds for school, athletics, or community events. Joists holding the roof and ceiling have been cut into and are compromised. The structure is not secure. As you saw, there's graffiti on the interior walls. There's asbestos and mold, among other health and environmental hazards. Squatters have been confirmed to have lived in the basement, and just a few weeks ago, new evidence was found of people having broken into the building. Knowing these risks exist and choosing to do nothing creates a liability to the town. But why now, as many of you asked? Why not vet this future proposal for the building? Why spend money on demo in light of the failed override? In terms of the former, use cases presented and vetted have been unsuccessful. The location on Ambrose grounds make the land poor use cases for housing. There are already large parking constraints for the staff at Ambrose. The current parking lots do not support residential parking. There's no place for private or direct access from High Street to the carriage house. So residential traffic, including Uber, food deliveries, and Amazon, to name a few, would have to go through to the school grounds. A library or central office were recommended. Both could work, but the cost of the renovation and parking constraints have been concerns. In terms of the latter, the answer, if you have heard, is simple. As everyone in this room has heard, the cost of doing any work, including demolition, is only getting more expensive. The building will require continued maintenance and upkeep in order to keep it safe, which has yet to be done in a sustainable way and will only become harder with the constraints DPW is facing. The funds are also coming from the capital stabilization funds, not free cash, and the capital planning committee is in favor of this action. In 2022, the article was presented to town meeting to appropriate funds to renovate the carriage house, attuning to the tone of $6 million. As Ms. Minyarji stated, the vote failed in an overwhelming 84% to 16%. Many of you sitting in this room today were town meeting members at the time. 114 of the 192 town meeting members in the 2022 vote are still sitting in this room. Of those 114, 18 people voted in favor of saving the carriage house. Since that vote, there have been $0 privately raised, and there has been no formation of a Friends of the Carriage House or similar organization created. The demo delay is in place for reasons exactly like this, to allow a year for organization and coming together to create a plan. No plan has come to fruition except for something that came through this morning. And while I appreciate that plan, I do have a few questions and concerns. Is the use case allowed by right under the current zoning? As a former daycare, the structure...
Yep, it's been 3 minutes, I'm sorry.
Noted.
Ms. McCarthy.
Thank you. Michelle McCarthy.
We're going to cap the speakers. Whoever's in line right now can speak, but after that, we're going to call the vote.
I was the member of the Historic Commission member that attended that site visit with Ms. Bellevue. The architect that was with us is here. The builder could not be here. They don't work till this late at night. I've been in the building numerous times with numerous architects and developers. This building is structurally sound. If you care about historic preservation, I mean, this isn't just any building, guys. This is on the National Register of Historic Landmarks. That's important. Our kids in this building, we have our own history teachers. Our AP Environmental Science teacher are asking kids to reach out to town meeting members to help preserve this building. This building can be saved. We are asking, a group has formed. Last year, we were never notified by the school committee that they were going to pull this demo permit. It was pulled. It takes time to raise money, guys. We pulled a group together. We have pledges, donors who have pledged the money to renovate this building. The Historic Society, who does an excellent job. If anyone's been in the Sanborn House, you know this. If you haven't, please rent it out. Have a meeting there. The Sanborn House is in beautiful condition. The Historic Society is asking to not spend your money. We're going to save you money. They want to raise money privately, which we already have those pledges and donations in pledge. We want to spend private money to preserve this national historic landmark. We can do that. This takes time, and it took us some time to get everyone together, but it also kind of took the urgency of like, wow, they're really going to demolish this building. Like, we really didn't think this would happen. I've been in the building. It's structurally sound. We have architects here who can speak to that. I was also an Ambrose parent for 10 years. I was a PTO president for many of those years. Never once did one parent, teacher, or principal ever complain about the building as being unsafe. Maybe things have changed in the last few years, but under the budget crisis that we're under, let's not spend money to destroy this historic building. Let's let private citizens raise money to preserve it and grow the historic Sanborn House. I would like to just add the following comment. I do my best to come here. I love this school. I love members on the school committee. I know you work hard. But some of the decisions that make no sense to me. I mean, we have Parkhurst that is sitting completely vacant. That could have been rented for hundreds of thousands of dollars and use that money for other things. Now we put the money back onto parents. I have children at this high school that play sports, and I'm hearing from many parents. Well, I just want to say, the school committee voted to raise all of the user fees for athletes.
That has nothing to do with this
and you
article.
should know that. It does.
It's out of order. Let's move on.
Well, it is. Thank you. This is the architect who's in the building, if anyone has a question.
About school? No.
So I'm going to make two brief points.
I think everybody knows that there was a Paris.
Thank you. Paris Bayani, member of Precinct 8 Town Meeting and member of the Select Board.
The moderator has asked us, as I agree with, not to make points that have already been made, so I'm going to confine my remarks to 2 brief points. First, you might wonder why 5 out of 5 select board members chose to sign on to something that is a school asset with the capital planning committee. It's not usually how we do things, right? If it's an Ambrose project or a Merco project, it's brought by the school committee with CPC. Why did we sign on? One of the scariest sentences you can hear as a new member of the select board is, we're starting a working group to look at the carriage house and we want you to be on it. Every one of us has been pulled into efforts over, 15 years probably, to say, let's take a look at what we're doing here. And as the new guy in 2025, I guess, it makes sense. I was the one put on it last time. After the school committee voted in August of 2025, that is when the year clock began. What happened? The Historical Commission pulled together a group, Planning Board, School Committee, Stephanie Mignardi served from the School Committee, and myself, again, you guy, from the Select Board on that group. That group met a few times. We advanced some ideas. Those ideas were completely impractical for the safe school routes and other issues with that site access that we talked about today. There was discussions about maybe fundraising. The president of the Historical Society was quoted in the Winchester News saying, our focus is on raising the $2 million for the Sanborn House itself. We do not have the capacity to take on the carriage house. And that is a position they took every year prior to that, going all the way back to 2011 when Jimmy Johnson served on the select board and at that time was put on the working group to take a look at the carriage house. The other point I'll make is what the president of the Historical Society said in the second half of the quote, which again was published in the Winchester News. He said, one idea though, since our $2 million of private fundraisings for the Sanborn House, is why don't we go after the newly formed Community Preservation Act? And that's the second point I want to make to town meeting. Town meeting is going to have a lot of choices on how to use the CPA. $100,000+ of CPA funding was approved in the last cycle for the columns at the Sanborn House itself. Those asks are going to keep coming, and candidly, I would support a lot of those asks for the Sanborn House itself. But the idea of either diverting private fundraising that could go to the Sanborn House to the carriage house, or even bringing direct carriage house CPA applications forward, that is a real risk that comes out of this. So the idea that there will be no taxpayer impact is simply untrue, whether it's directly or indirectly.
Thank you. Further on the question?
Yeah. I was one of the
Please
people.
name your, what's your name and precinct?
Ayşegül Mutlay Bilecek. Actually, I'm living in 247 Washington Street.
Are you a town meeting member?
No, I'm
So I have to ask town meeting for
Okay.
permission. Will town meeting members allow this young woman to speak? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, you may speak.
Okay, thank you. So this building is it's 120 years old building. It's not an eyesore. It's on the historic landmark list because it's part of the Sanborn House. Historic preservation doesn't work like we can just cut the parts that we choose from the building, and I think Winchester doesn't have this much. This valuable historic buildings a lot, and we all remember all the countries and cities with their architecture. So once we lose this, we cannot recreate it. And I think it's very disappointing that it's also in the premises of the school, and we are teaching our kids neglect and demolish rather than saving it, which there is a way to do that. And I went inside, and I'm saying it again, for 120 years, the building is still standing strong. If there's something to do, why not?
Okay, thank you. Further on the question? Okay, we're going to proceed directly to a vote. Should we do clickers? Should we move the question? Is it required? It's 2/3, right? Yeah, so move the question requires 2/3. It will decide if we proceed directly to vote on this article. A vote in favor is to move directly to the vote. A vote against is to continue with the speakers. You ready? So open up for 30 seconds. requiring, so what's the total number?
103.
It's on that.
Here's your 2/3. The 103 required.
103 votes required to pass. The motion carries with 105 votes in the affirmative. We're going to proceed directly to the question now. Is moved and so keep in mind that this is
This
Yep.
number 25 is 2/3.
So 2/3 vote required. It is moved and seconded that the town appropriate $300,000 for the demolition of the carriage house located at 21, no, it's not 2/3. Is it?
Yes, it is. It's coming out of capital, correct?
Okay, so 2/3. It is moved and seconded that the town appropriate $300,000 for the demolition of the carriage house located at 21 High Street, including disposal costs, environmental remediation, site work, grading, engineering, and consulting fees, and all other costs incidental and related thereto, of which $19,463.32 is from account 0398942, Carriage House Architectural and Engineering, and $280,536.68 is from Capital Stabilization Fund established under Chapter 69 of the Acts of 2002. Let's take out our clickers. All those in favor, vote yes. All those opposed, no. 2/3 is required. 30 seconds. Oh no, I'm going to do 27.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Do you guys want to get ready on 27?
What's that, Phil?
27 is going to get ready.
Okay.
The 26, he's not ready with the slides.
Okay.
While we're waiting, I'm going to take this opportunity to make fun of Chris Nixon, who's
Okay, well, let's do this first.
with 89 votes in the negative, the motion fails.
Can you read it yes and no for me, please?
61 in the affirmative, 89
Okay,
against, 7 abstentions.
thank you.
So that concludes Article 25. Article 26, the proponent is not prepared with his slides, though generally very thorough and prepared. He's not prepared tonight. Article 27, Morocco feasibility study.
Number 27,
Yes.
and that's Mr. Matthews?
Mr. Matthews and Mr. Belair. On behalf of the school committee, Dr. Matthews and
27, right?
the future of Winchester politics, John Belair. I'm not prepared for that this year.
So are you going to postpone this to a time certain, that being Monday? Because it just,
No, there's a lot of parents here. I don't think it's fair to object. Well, that's kind of what we do here at town meeting. We start. There's a lot of people here from the community. We owe it to them to get to it, so we're going to do it. I don't think I do.
comment? Did she make it as a point of order or just for a motion?
Okay, we'll take a vote, voice vote. All those in favor of adjourning? Any opposed?
No.
The noes have it. Thank you.
All right.
Dr. Matthews.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, town meeting. My name is Timothy Matthews. Once again, Chair of the School Committee, I rise with my colleague, Mr. John Belair, to present to you Article 27, which is the funding for the Morocco School Feasibility Study. I will just set the background and then let Mr. Belair make the remainder of the presentation. I will start by noting that Winchester is and has been historically proud of its neighborhood schools. And over a period of many years, we have consistently invested to improve our school buildings. That is an effort to really ensure that all of our students are able to learn in safe, vibrant classroom environments. And I would like to make the point, both on a personal level as someone who has an incoming Morocco kindergartner next year, as well as someone who has lived in Precinct 1 since 2018 when our family moved to Winchester. Morocco is the last remaining school in Winchester's decades-long arc of school facility improvement. In the table here, you'll see the different dates on which our schools were constructed and reconstructed. And in more recent memory, we have often partnered with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA, in order to defray a percentage of the cost of constructing those schools when they are actually put together. So most recently, the Lynch project was in partnership with MSBA. We also worked with them on the Winchester High School and Vincent Owen projects going back to 2018. So as you can see here, Winchester has actually partnered with the MSBA across multiple successful projects, and they really just fund and support the design and construction of our new public or improved public school facilities. The MSBA's role is to reimburse eligible costs for school construction and renovation up to a ceiling that they set before the project begins. That's a base rate of 31%. And then into that 31% is an additional adjustment that is based on the overall community income status. Obviously, I think everyone is acutely aware that Winchester is one of the more wealthy communities in Massachusetts, and so we really only get a small bump from that base rate. And so MSBA has stated that the rate for Morocco of reimbursement would be 32.47%. So you can see here in the table the taxpayer savings that has been realized from partnering with MSBA on these 4 projects. I will now hand it over to Mr. Belair, who is himself an alum of the Morocco School, to walk you through the profile of the building and more information on the MSBA process.
Thank you. So the Morocco School was constructed in 1967. It currently serves about 300 students. It's located on Bates Road, which is off of Washington Street, and serves students in the northeast corner of town. I also think when we're talking about this, the population of students that are served by Morocco, it contains the second highest concentration of high-needs students of our elementary schools. About 40% of Morocco elementary school students are designated as high needs. About 11% are low income specifically. And Morocco, as well as Lynch, are our Title I schools here in town. So when we're thinking about the list of projects that Dr. Matthews walked through and how Morocco's kind of been at the end of that, this has been something that's kind of a long time coming, especially for some of our students who need additional support. So we're excited to be moving forward in partnership with the MSBA. The second thing I'll kind of tee up here is the overall facility quality. So the structural systems that Morocco has in place are aging. I think many of you who might walk by will see some windows that have been boarded up. Some of the brickwork on the outside exterior has deteriorated, and as this slide kind of lays out, the MSBA works across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and they've invited Morocco into the eligibility period because they believe it is one of the lowest quality elementary schools in the state. That's why they want to prioritize doing the work where it's needed most, and they believe that that's Morocco, and we owe it to our students there to continue to provide safe classroom environments. There's also a lot of energy costs associated with the poor thermal performance of the current structure. Another thing that has come up a good amount is enrollment. I think the TMMA discussion board has been very helpful, so thank you to those who've contributed questions there. Based off our current enrollment levels and also theoretically 60 years out, hopefully this building lasts even longer than that if we're able to move forward today. We really need 5 elementary schools, and we're committed as a school committee to having 5 neighborhood schools. We would need to lose about a fifth of our students from where we are currently to operate successfully with just 4 elementary schools, so it really isn't feasible. will enrollment go down 2 years from now, 3 years from now? I really don't know. Will it go up? We'll see. But I think we can all probably agree that hopefully 30 years from now, and understanding that populations grow and we continue to build housing in town, we will need this school in the longer term. So we got invited to the eligibility period of the Massachusetts School Building Authority in December, and that kind of starts a 270-day clock that if you've been following our meetings, you've heard a good amount about, where we have a number of steps that we need to work through. Again, Module 1 is kind of the first period of many different steps. This is a very long multi-year process that we're just in the beginning of figuring out. We've already started a lot of work. This kind of lays out the checklist of stuff we have to do contained in Module 1. The one that we're focused on for this article is authorizing the feasibility study, which is a critical step in order for us to continue moving forward in partnership with the MSBA. So the feasibility study is an opportunity for us to gather more information about what the school's educational program might look like, what some of the potential options in terms of the actual construction will be. So if you have questions about, kindergarten or universal pre-K, whatever, things that people have talked about as different STEAM room program elements that we might want to include, the feasibility study is going to help us answer and get to the bottom of those things. So this is really that critical requirement that we talked about. This is a key step that town meeting has not to necessarily or certainly not to put the debt exclusion on the ballot like in the fall, but just to move forward again. We're in step 1 of 9, and this is just one critical component of that sub-step. And this authorizes the treasurer to borrow $1.5 million, which the MSBA will reimburse a substantial portion of, and we also, based off of prior projects, will likely not need to use all of that money. That's just kind of what the MSBA asked that we initially appropriate. So to make this vote really simple for you, if we are to pass this article, that will allow us to continue submitting some of the Module 1 requirements, and also will keep us on track for what we hope is an opening during fall 2031 or thereabouts. If we don't pass this article in order to move forward in partnership with the MSBA, we're likely going to come back in the fall and ask for your partnership again. But if we don't pass it now or in the fall, we run the risk of falling out of the MSBA pipeline and having to start over. This is the 4th time within the last decade that we've tried to partner with the MSBA, so we have this really critical opportunity. So hopefully we can move forward while we have this opportunity, knowing that we need this school now and in the long term. If you have some additional questions related to pre-K, I know that's something that had come up, but no, the MSBA does not require that we build in pre-K. It's something that that they expressed interest in, that we expressed interest in, and is something that the feasibility study will help us get to the bottom of and figure out and solicit community input on. And this kind of makes the case why we should move forward with the rebuilding now based off of some of the things I talked about earlier. So yeah, that's all we've got for our presentation.
Thank you. Can we get the recommendation of the Select Board?
The Select Board voted favorable action on Article 27. The vote was 4 in favor and 1 abstaining. In the spring of last year, the Select Board helped to facilitate improvements that took place over the summer in the Morocco School. These were a little bit more than a fresh coat of paint, but not by much. There was asbestos abatement done so that carpets that were potentially original to the building could be replaced with VCT tiles, which if you imagine what happens in an elementary school, you would much rather clean a tile than a carpet. There was also some space configuration. Morocco famously had a cafegimatorium. It is now just a gymatorium, and there is a cafeteria space that was able to be created by moving some things around within the building. In that movement, the cafeteria space is a little bit smaller. There's extended lunch periods, and things have to shift over that. This didn't address the building issues that Mr. Belair mentioned, like the single pane windows. There are some areas with very high ceilings and high windows and curtains that can no longer be closed because the fixtures to do so are so old. And it didn't address instructional spaces. If you were familiar, the Morocco School was originally an open plan classroom, which was the height of design in the mid-60s, but seems to be quite clearly determined to not be effective learning space. It also didn't address the mold damage in the basement from the multiple floods, as mentioned. One other point is that while we have been talking about the override quite substantially last night and this night, I'm sure that will continue, the borrowing authorization, authorization will be for borrowing of up to $1.5 million, and the payments will be made on the short-term borrowing authorization notes. The payments in the short term will be small, and that will be rolled into a potential debt exclusion with the reimbursement rate down the road. And that's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Should we get the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Tim, you may have not had this on your bingo card. The FinCom votes 9-0 favorable. Look forward to a robust study of all options.
Thank you. Can we get the abbreviated recommendation of the EFPBC? Was that strategic?
How many people thought I was going to say something about the carriage house? That was a good debate. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So I'm pleased to say the EFPBC unanimously recommends favorable action. We also were willing to even co-sponsor the article, and while that might be unusual building committee, we felt strongly about that because this is a critical step in fulfilling the vision of the current master plan that we have on the shelf, that being the one developed from 2016 to 2017 that prioritized the rebuilding of both Lynch and Morocco. What we said to the MSBA at the time was we need to do both. Lynch is bigger and older than Morocco, but they each have important needs. And we really tried hard to make the case with the MSBA. We submitted statements of interest for both, some of you may remember, and ultimately they invited us to the dance for Lynch. And so when that happened, we then pivoted very quickly with the helpful support of the Select Board to develop the Morocco Life Extension Plan. That commitment was to have a new Morocco underway between 2028 and 2030. And while the slide that may even still be up here says we might have Morocco finished by 2030, it would certainly be substantially underway. And then I would also share, because there have been some questions coming at us about the current master plan, which you also, of course, have funded. Phase one, about a year ago, was the updated enrollment demographic study, which I think has been helpful to Dr. Hackett and the school committee. Phase two is the assessment of our current school facilities today, including Morocco, and also an exciting exploration at what the short and long-term needs are and what those options look like. Our original schedule had that happening this spring, but given the substantial effort that was going into the override and the consequence with the failed vote, the EFPBC has actually instructed the master plan team to hold off on this important visioning step, if you will, until we can get on the back of this spring town meeting, because we feel it's really important to engage the school committee and FinCom and the Select Board. So we look forward to that very shortly after this town meeting. And the consequence of this exercise is we will really begin to scratch the surface at what a new Morocco might be, what it might need, and how we might go about finding some of those solutions. So the purpose then would be for the outcome of the master plan to substantially inform, think of it as a springboard to this helpful feasibility study. So we recommend favorable action. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So we're joined tonight by a member from the community who would like to speak. She's representing all the Morocco parents. This town meeting consent to allowing her. Thank you.
Okay, I'm setting my timer. Thank you, everybody. My name is Joanna Shea O'Brien. I know many of you. I live at 41 Lincoln Street. I have 2 students here at the high school. My daughter Caitlin's at McCall. I've been at Morocco for 9 years on the Health and Safety Committee, also as a MESPA co-chair. I've worked with many of you elected officials on many exciting projects to help not just Morocco, but our community. I'm here to urge you, all town meeting members, please to vote yes on Article 27. This article, as you know, has the unanimous support of the school committee and also FinCom. And also broad community support. There's many current and past Morocco families here tonight watching online at home, and also not just Morocco families, but across the district. The Morocco building, as you saw on the slide, dates to 1967. By 2030, the earliest opening date we've heard, it will be 63 years old, with original features that only a full renovation or rebuild can address. Our students and staff face real space challenges that our newer renovated schools are not don't have to experience. The stage stores copiers and office supplies. The auditorium doubles as the gym. Kids doing individual work sit at tables in the hallways, and the lower level has been unusable for many, many years after flood damage. We are really, truly grateful for the many recent investments that has been given to Morocco, the 2021 debt exclusion for electrical and boiler work, 2025 updates. They have been excellent. And we're really grateful for the hard work of a lot of people in this room to get us there. But those were bridge measures to keep the building functional for a few more years. They're not long-term solutions. We believe that delaying Morocco only makes it more expensive. Morocco parents have shown up for every school initiative in this town. We were co-chairs for the Vincent Owen rebuild, Brenda, yeah, and she's going to help us. We have a lot of support from other schools. And we really want to remind you that for context, in 2020, town meeting approved the Lynch feasibility study 131-7. So tonight we're asking you to show up for us as we have shown up for this town. Please vote yes on Article 27, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any town meeting members who would like to speak? Please make your way to the microphones. Move the vote. I mean, we can hear one person speak. Yeah, but not you.
It's late.
Meredith, just to top her off this cocktail.
This could be a really great day. Meredith Crowley, Precinct 1. I just want to read a quick thing, and I'll make it real quick. Winchester has a population of, in that 23,000 range. Of the four similarly sized surrounding communities, including Belmont, Winchester has a lower population and the highest school enrollment. We all know that Winchester is a beautiful, charming town and that it's been likened to a village. People want to come to Winchester for the good schools, which drive real estate value. So it is a sacrifice for many people to come here, but they are willing to do so for the good schools, for the great schools, and for their children. Over the last 20 years, I've supported the rebuilding of the schools, but every time the Morocco was passed by, my heart sunk. The Morocco community has patiently waited. We were promised 6 years ago that when the Lynch School was selected, that our school would be next, and that time has arrived. I know that as a retired teacher, the challenges of teaching and learning when a building is not designed for today's instructional strategies. As a specialist, I taught in small spaces not designed for teaching. Poor learning spaces are not a good message to give kids who struggle. When the community I worked in rebuilt the schools, I remember the day I walked through the doors to a new building and the beautiful spaces and the transformed learning. I know that Winchester's parents, when they go into the new schools now, that they must feel real joy that their child has had the opportunity to learn in such beautiful spaces. The children and the families of the Morocco School want and deserve the same experience. They have waited a long time. The Morocco children all know that their school is next. What we do here tonight will be a very powerful message to them. They know all the other schools have been beautifully built, and it's their turn. Delaying until November is not a viable option. It's just an attempt to say no. So we must find a way, not put it off, to follow through with the commitment made 6 years ago. We must say yes to the Morocco School.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to read the question. We're going to take the vote. There's a couple things we need to do before we can adjourn, so don't all run out of here, please. It is moved and seconded that the town appropriate $1,500,000 for a feasibility study of the Marco Elementary School located at 33 Bates Road, Winchester, Massachusetts, including all costs incidental and related thereto, for which the feasibility study the town may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts Building Authority, said amount to be expended under the direction of the Educational Facilities Planning and Building Committee, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, be authorized to borrow $1,500,000 under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, or under any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, that any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, lest any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of the issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount, and that the town acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA. And any cost the town incurs in connection with a feasibility study in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town. And that the amount of any borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth in the feasibility study agreement that may be executed between the town and the MSBA. 2/3 required. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. So as we discussed, we need to waive the 7-day requirement for the budget book. It should be available tomorrow. I have a motion. Can I get a second? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Can I get a motion to adjourn? Second? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Alan Iden here at the Winchester High School. The second session of Winchester Spring 2026 Town Meeting has just adjourned. So let's cover what happened tonight. We started with Article 4, which was a proposal to establish a Town Human Rights Commission. We heard from the proponents saying, why was it needed? They said there were over 3,200 claims filed with Mass Commission Against Discrimination in 2025 and documented 467 hate crimes in the state, including an increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes. There were personal stories of harassment in Winchester schools. This commission would be composed of 9 members, including 2 students. The 3-year terms, except for the students, would be 1-year terms. The commission would partner with the Network for Social Justice here in town. The Committee on Government Regulations opposed it. They said it should be set up outside of a town meeting board, not as a bylaw. But we heard that many other communities exist not set up by town meeting. The president of Winchester ABC, Better Chance, said surrounding towns have commissions that educate and inspire and don't just react to hate crimes or discrimination crimes. They actually encourage people to reach out for educational purposes. the establishment of that commission was passed by 124 to 29. Article 5 was revisiting an article that came up last year, which was to change the rules by which town meeting operates from Robert's Rules, which it always has in Winchester, to a new system of rules called town meeting time, which apparently most of the towns in New England have adopted, similar to Robert's Rules, but there are some differences. There was a committee established to study this. They had 3 recommendations. One was the first one being to change to town meeting time as the rules, to establish an assistant moderator. The assistant moderator would just assist and not take the moderator's place. If the moderator could not serve, town meeting would have to elect another moderator temporarily. And the last motion was to allow anybody to stand to move a vote. Town meeting time requires them to be recognized by the moderator and speak. The committee studying this felt that that was too cumbersome, that somebody could actually get up to speak and then immediately move the question and shut off all further speakers. So the committee suggested leaving that in Winchester tradition that anyone could stand up to move the vote. And the last item was to codify what they call the consent agenda. If you're not familiar with the consent agenda, there are certain articles, and they're listed in the warrant, certain articles that are assumed to be not generating any debate, that they're just routinely passed. So town meeting can vote just to accept all those articles. Any town meeting member can ask to have one of the articles removed because they may want to discuss it or change it. But it's been a tradition here in Winchester, but it was not actually in the rules, so this actually would codify the rules. This was passed and it will be in effect for the fall town meeting. So after the recess, we had Article 17, which was just to accept the report of the Capital Planning Committee and commented on the retired long-time serving chair Helen Filio, and she was recognized by town meeting for many, many years of service on capital planning. That was accepted. Article 19, again, some of these articles were skipped because they were on the consent agenda. We went from 17 to 19. Capital planning had 3 items there, an ADA, American Disability Act transition plan for $120,000, that passed. MS4 state regulation for $150,000 with money for the water and sewer fund was passed, and a culvert study for Everett Avenue also funded for $50,000 from water and sewer funds. That was passed. 21 dealt with the ongoing construction of the South Reservoir Dam, seeking an additional $830,000. We heard that there was a dispute with the contractor doing that work, and the town parted ways with that contractor. So the town is seeking additional grants, which might reduce the cost. This was actually $330 in new funds. The rest was transferred from unexpended funds. That was Article 21. That passed. Article 22, we heard about a lot of repairs needed to the town hall, library roofs, the library windows, and the town hall clock tower. Additional repairs, as you may have seen, the repairs to the library roof are ongoing. Apparently, they have discovered some more further damage as they take it back, as they remove the old roof, and some of the damage going back to the original construction of the library, which I believe was in the 1930s. The rest will come from the Building Stabilization Fund, and that's passed. Article 23, Town Hall repairs. This is $200,000 for a study, but apparently there are a lot of repairs needed at the Town Hall, HVAC systems, disability issues, fire suppression systems, restrooms, windows, electrical and network repairs. So this was $200,000 for a study to find out the extent of the repairs needed and move forward with appropriations for it. That passed. A lot of discussion on Article 25, demolition of the carriage house. Appropriation requested was $300,000 from building stabilization. We heard that the school committee said they cannot undo years of neglect of the carriage house, and there is limited accessibility to it during school hours because of the way it's configured on the Ambrose school site. Some town meeting members and the school committee said there was evidence of unauthorized access. The finance committee voted unfavorable action, and they requested to give the Historical Society 1 year to examine possibility of reuse of the carriage house. A town meeting member from the Winchester Historical Society suggested renovating one floor of the house to reduce the need for an elevator or ADA issues. There were neighbors speaking in favor of the demolition, saying there were rumors of unauthorized access to the house and use of the house. And we heard a lot of discussion, both pro and con, on this. Finally, the question was moved. 68% said yes, 3/4 required, 66%, and 2/3 was required to do this appropriation. Only 35% voted in favor of it, so the Article 25 failed. Last article of the night was the Morocco School Feasibility Study. This was a request for $1.5 million to be borrowed to look into the feasibility to apply to the Mass School Building Authority grant for reconstruction funds. They apparently there's a possibility of getting 32% reimbursement. The school was built in 1967. It is the oldest school in the system. We heard that 40% of the students are high needs. And we also heard that the school committee is committed to 5 elementary schools in town. So it was not a question of removing the Morocco and just using the other 4. So MSBA, School Building Authority, needs the town to appropriate the $1.5 million. Chris Nixon from the Educational Facilities Planning and Building Committee would like to see the new school done by 2030 or 31. It was that $1.5 million borrowed was passed unanimously, and that's where we ended up for the night. For more detail on what has happened at town meeting, I want to suggest that you, if you don't already, subscribe to winchesternews.org. They do a great job of going into detail on a lot of these things and other things that are going in around town. You can get a free subscription. It gets in your email box every Thursday, but you can look at it anytime. So it's winchesternews.org. Just go there and you can sign up for a free subscription. They're doing a great job, and they can go into more detail than we can cover in this quick summary. So anyway, plugging winchesternews.org. Anyway, for all of us here at WinCam, I'm Alan Iden. Thank you for joining us, and we will be back to cover town meeting next Monday.